Good?
Yeah, I got double here.
Jamie, Jamie, we're going to start, sorry.
Yeah. All right, I'd like to call to order the Village Council Budget Work Session, March 12, 2024. I show the time at 5:02 p.m. I show we have a full quorum. Welcome, everyone. So we don't have to consider allowing remote participation. We'll go right into the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes or removals? Hearing none, I need to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. First up, we have budget work session, discuss and consider adoption of fiscal year 2025 through 2029 capital improvement plan, CIP. Who's got that?
So I'll kind of jump in and start off. Before you, I think you guys have your CIP plan in front of you. And I just want to say for the public or for those that are listening or in attendance today, the capital improvement plan is not a budget. It is not a binding agreement. It is something that we use for staff and council to dictate what priorities we try to put into the budget. So we do this every year to make those priorities known to the public, and it's also an opportunity for staff to make priorities that we have known for you if there's any safety issues or anything that we think is of need. This is also an opportunity for us to look at the priority forms that council submits around the retreat time and put those into somewhat of a request to you all to see if we can accommodate the funding for that in the fiscal year budget that we are getting ready to look at after this item. So again, I repeat, this is not a budget. A lot of people are mistaking that if they see numbers here, that's what we are putting in the budget. It is not the case. This is something that we strive to do if council approves the CIP. We have to go through the process, let you all listen to what is in here, let you vet those items. If you want to take things out, push them back a year or two or three or four or five, take them off. That's totally your prerogative to do. But here we are to present the capital improvement plan for y'all to look at. We can amend it. If you like it the way it is, you will adopt it. If you don't, we'll go back to the drawing board. There's been plenty of years in years past where we've gone back to the drawing board with the CIP multiple times. So it's not uncommon for us to look at this, get more information, and then come back to you all with a revised CIP plan. I will say in years prior to the one that you're going to see tonight, I've pretty much been successful in getting 100% of those items done within small variation, but we do have problems this year in meeting the request, so we are going to have to start looking at what we're going to cut. In the upcoming budget that you'll see as the next agenda item in this meeting, there's items that are in this capital improvement plan that are not in the budget. Employees requested them. I have already cut them, so you will see those, and I'll talk about those when we get to that point. But this is the opportunity for our staff that's sitting here today to express to you some concerns that they may have and look at issues of these items that they think are important. Laserfish, for example, is one that Austin's going to present. That's a record-keeping software. That's one of the things that we've cut from the budget, but I would be remiss if I didn't allow him to present his findings and the rationale as to why he thinks that's important. And pending no further questions on that, we'll go ahead and jump into the plan itself. Does anyone have any questions about the plan in general? Okay. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Jill. Finance was very instrumental in putting this plan together, as well as a budget, which you'll see shortly. We do have currently $2.7 million in requests for the year that we are getting ready to adopt, and we obviously have to make cuts on that. But I'm going to turn it over to Jill. She can give you some high-level numbers, and then we're going to turn it over to each individual department to present their items.
Okay, so we're going to start off with Public Works, and I do want to just point out for this section that obviously we have Marvin Eford parking as the top item there. 100,000 expense for 26 to 27. Based on recent meetings that we've had that happened after this was created, obviously, council is aware we're trying to get that done sooner, economies of scale, get it all done at once. And so that item is one that we will likely move up and use our COVID funds to take care of, but it's on here for now just because that decision was made after. But if that does indeed come to fruition, we'll take it off the CIP.
Would we ask questions as we're going through these or later?
Well, I'm going to give you high level per department and then turn it over to each department head who's going to take you
Okay.
through each item specifically. So some of your questions might be answered on the individual sheets, and if not, I'll let the department head answer at that time if that works for you guys. Okay. So for next fiscal year for Public Works, we pushed off the Lakeside Corridor that was going to happen this year, some improvements there. And then you did hear at the retreat about another vehicle purchase, another truck that Davey had presented to you all, so that's here on the CIP. For next fiscal year for Parks and Rec, there is some park amenity improvements, also was presented to you at the retreat, and we did have some improvements to the park that was on our CIP plan for this fiscal year that we also pushed off to next year, prioritizing other projects instead. You'll see under administration, we still have the wayfinding project on there, the Laserfish, as Christina referred to, and then the Village Hall Park. So some of these items will obviously have some funding sources other than our operating budget, grants and things like that, but they're still listed on here for your review. For planning, we've added the Heritage District Master Plan. We are recommending, or Hunter's going to recommend getting a consultant to help us kind of plan that out. And for Greenways and Capital, most of this was just continuation of projects that are already in process and that were on your CIP last year. Finishing up the Marvin Creek Loop and some of these other items here, including a wetland study. And for roads and pedestrian safety, things like that, we do have the roundabout construction share for the Waxhaw Marvin Road and Bonds Grove Church Road roundabout on there, as well as some pedestrian refuges at roads and intersections that we thought truly needed those, some neighborhood connectivity for crossing, and then a pavement preservation charge for the next fiscal year. So we're going to go through each of these individually, be able to answer your questions, but that's just sort of a high-level view from each of the different categories and departments tonight.
Oh, sorry. Hey, I just wanted to mention, too, that we've got about 50 minutes scheduled for this meeting, so while department heads are presenting, if you guys could just hold your questions until they get done to the end, I think that might preserve a little bit of time. Till the end of theirs, that is.
Good evening. So first on this list, again, is the parking expansion, and some discussions have taken place since this was actually entered into the CIP request. So I don't know that there's anything to add to the discussion based on what our previous discussions were for that particular item. But it would be for increasing additional parking within the park itself. The popularity of our events, we found have brought in more traffic, and we can safely park we think about 120 vehicles in the park currently, approximately that. But it is still a gravel lot, gravel roads, and the CIP would help look for areas that we may be able to expand our current parking where it is to different areas of the park, but and also adding asphalt as well if need. So.
I think with adding the asphalt, there was a specific purpose to that because we needed more ADA spots to be compliant. Is that correct? Is it a compliancy issue, or is it just we'd like to have more ADA spots?
It's not so much of a compliancy issue at this point. We just would like to have more spots for ADA purposes. But by expanding any parking at all, we would have to expand that ADA footprint as well.
It's not a compliance issue as the park stands right now, but when we have events, we need to provide more ample ADA parking.
Any questions, further questions on the parking? All right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's get all of your stuff done, and then we'll come back
All
to
right.
it.
The next item is, it's an equipment purchase for a used bucket truck. The equipment could be used for multiple reasons and opportunities. First of all, currently staff has no way of maintaining the trees and dead wood that are in the trees at any of our parks or areas, properties that are owned by the village above what a ladder could reach. We would have to contract that work out now to have those trees maintained. This truck would provide that for staff. We would be able to reach most all of the trees in our parks. You're looking at about a 30-foot boom. We're not looking for a high-rise bucket truck or anything like that. This would be a used piece of equipment. There are companies out there that lease these out, and then we would be looking to try to purchase one off that's been completed with the lease program.
And that is not something he's asking for in next year's budget, so you guys will hear this same spiel again next year. That is something that's in the CIP request for fiscal year 25-26. So not a whole lot that you need to discuss today. You will hear that again next year around the same time, and it'll be something that we try to get in next year's budget if it's approved.
Other items it could be used for if we are looking to, we have the ability now with power poles along Newtown Road, if we wanted to begin a banner program where you have seasonal banners, holiday banners. This truck, staff would be able to, if we work through Union County Power to gain permission, we could add the hardware to those poles. This truck would help us with that, and then we would periodically change those banners out. And it also adds a benefit for any decorations that we would hang for holiday seasons that now we're either contract out or purchase or actually rent equipment that we can reach the areas that need to be decorated. So it's a multi-use piece of equipment that could be beneficial in future years. Next item, I think you've seen this before. This is the Lakeside Corridor enhancements. At the end of the park, we only have one restroom facility in the park currently, and it's directly behind the barn. We have at the very end of the park near the lake is a covered shelter. It's rented out quite frequently. It's used daily, but it's a long walk from there to the current restroom. So in this plan here, you would look at doing some grading in the lower area and construction of a unisex restroom. We have the availability of water there. We would just need to add a septic field for that, but it's something that I think would benefit the park itself to have a restroom facility at the very end of the park. Our walking trail goes around, circles the park, but again, if you're on the walking trail, you're a good ways away at the end of the park from the current restroom. In that, we would look at engineering plans estimated at $15,000 with construction of being about $80,000 for the restroom facility itself, including the grading and all for it. And again, this was, this next item for the landscaping plantings for Roundabout 4. That's the projection of the next roundabout that may come about in the near future. Again, we budgeted $10,000 for plantings to match the same as the current 3 roundabouts that we are maintaining. And so we want to keep a uniform look in all of the roundabouts, and this just matches what we've completed recently on Newtown Road and Marvin Road roundabout. And the last item is a purchase of a vehicle. I had spoke previously, Public Works Department currently has 1 truck. We've purchased a 2nd truck that we've ordered, and we're waiting for the delivery of it. This would be a 3rd truck for the department, and it would be, we're recommending a used truck, if you will. What that gives us the ability to do is have the crew with a truck to do their work. You would have a truck for the superintendent of Public Works to handle the items that they're assigned, and also a truck available for the Public Works Director to utilize as well. It would be beneficial whenever the superintendent and I have different duties and we have to split up in different areas of Marvin. Right now, we have to ride together to do that. This would give us the ability to address issues a little quicker than we have the ability to now. And those are my items, so I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
All right, so I have questions.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure can.
We got a whole lot to get through tonight, like including the actual budget. So do we want to just do a high overview of each one, hold your questions until next time, or do one, get through it, ask all the questions? Like, how do you want to do this, Christina? Because we got 40 minutes left.
Yeah,
and we
I
got a
can-
lot of stuff to get through.
I can actually go through the rest of them if you want me to, pretty high level, and then we'll do this again at the next meeting, and then we can go into,
Yeah, let's just maybe have our questions ready for the next.
yeah, that's
I mean,
fine.
I'm okay asking questions now, but I kind of feel like we should just ask these right now, because
If you-
we've gone more in depth on this, and then the rest of them just go high level, because otherwise we're going to get through 2 of these with all of our questions, and we're not going to get through anything.
Yeah,
I
so,
just have very high-level questions.
No, I'm not saying, I want to know like what the process is, because again, we're 20 minutes in.
yeah, I mean, y'all can go ahead and ask questions. We're not ready 100% on the budget, so we can do high level on the budget, but I do want to at least spend 20 minutes on that.
Yeah.
So, but we do need to kind of go through this a little bit faster.
So let's ask Davey questions. Let's
Okay.
get for his stuff, and then let's go real high level on the rest of them, so we
Okay.
can at least get a feel for it, because we got to move this along.
All right. So all I wanted to ask was, first off, I didn't hear a price on the lift truck, what you're projecting. And second, have you considered a pull-behind lift for that same purpose? Save you on insurance, save you on tags, save you on, maintenance of a vehicle, trailer versus a truck? Just throwing that out there. That's all I have.
Those are good questions, very good questions. The projected price was $75,000 for the vehicle, and that's the use for that, the pull behind, we tossed that idea around, but the versatility of the truck versus the pull behind, especially if we're going to do a banner program, the shoulder of the roads have a little slope to them. Bucket trucks are designed with the chassis to actually level off so that you can do the work, whereas a pull behind, you have to level it up, and it's a little more cumbersome. And it's just, I think the ease of use of a bucket truck is what we were looking for.
Okay.
So just a reminder, guys, this request specifically is not going to be on this year's budget. This is next year's. So we'll have plenty of time to ask these questions for this particular item in next year.
Just one quick one. Lakeside corridor enhancement and looking potentially to put restrooms down by the lake there. I do believe that from the previous house there was either a septic field that was preserved or actually put in at the time that that was developed. So just look into that, because that might be a way.
I will do that.
Save us some
To
money.
save money.
I will check into that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Davey. I'm sorry for those of you that don't get to present. I'm sure you're disappointed. Public Works subtotal, as you saw, was $45,000. Again, we will talk about this at the next budget work session. We do have the vehicle purchase in the budget currently. We do not currently have the Lakeside Corridor, just so you are aware. Park amenities, you can go through this little packet on your own. This is park amenities for Marvin Eford Park. These are little amenities like Gaga ball pits, maybe a volleyball court, that kind of stuff. I think there's some more itemized information that's in the reflective sheet that goes with that document, so you can look at that. That is not something that we have currently in the budget, so just so you're aware of that. There is a future study on, a Heritage Pocket Park that's multiple years down the road, so that's itemized out. You can look at the detail on that one. So your total park, total for next year is $50,000, which we currently have zero budgeted. Any questions on that? All right, so then you have admin totals, which is wayfinding. As you all know, we went through a in-depth wayfinding initiative last year that we put together a proposal in the general obligation bond that did not pass, so we do have it here in the CIP request. This is not something that we have in the budget. The Laserfish, you can read the detail on that. This is basically record-keeping software that is not currently in the budget. Austin did submit that and has been subsequently cut. And then the Village Hall Park listed at $2 million. This is something that we had in the previous capital improvement plan. At the time we had this in, we had quotes from McAdams, which was about $3 to $4 million. That was for Phase 1 and Phase 2. The Phase 1 of this park is what we have currently projected as the Part F project, which is basically laying the groundwork, the foundation for a future structure to come into play. That would be Phase 2. We do not have funding in the budget for that currently, because that is part of the Part F project. So that's not, there's $0 in the proposed budget for the Part F application. We have a separate capital improvement plan for that, or capital project ordinance, I should say. Any questions on the admin? We currently have $0 budgeted for admin as well. Planning and zoning, he has a Marvin Heritage District Master Plan. You can look at the detail that's in the CIP plan for that. That's divided into 2 different years. We currently do have the $35,000 in the budget for this year. And that's all he's requesting. In the trails and greenways, that is a separate capital improvement project in and of itself. We do have a capital project ordinance for that. It's listed currently at $307,000. We basically take whatever grants that we know we have matching for certain projects at that time, we try to plug them into here, and then we just keep looking at what's in the master plan as short-term goals, and we keep adding those on. So you guys have seen these trails before. They've been in previous CIP plans that you all have seen. We do have that wetland study in there, so we can have an engineer come in and do an overlay, basically of our trails master plan, and figure out what areas of need we will have to do additional studies, so we can get a better game plan for that. Any questions on that? And then the POW bill subtotals are $50,000. We have roundabout construction share, that's in a subsequent year, that is not in this coming up year. We have pedestrian refuge, and then we have pavement preservation. We actually just did a fog sale application this year, and if you recall, we do those every other year, so you're not seeing anything for next year as a capital improvement plan item. All that to say, the current requests are $2.7 million for next year. I forgot to say this in the beginning of this quick little presentation, but this is also, as I mentioned, this is an opportunity for you all to look at your priorities, to look at staff priorities. It's also an opportunity for, when we seek grant funding, grantors like to see projects in this list. So they want to see that you've kind of done your due diligence to vet it properly to the public, to vet it properly to council, to make sure that it's some of their priorities. And if they see it on this list, there's a higher likelihood that it will be funded. So we do have things on here that may be years later, but that's one of the reasons, because we currently are looking at grants all the time. And then if we see something that kind of fits these puzzle pieces, we try to make those connect. Are there any questions on any of that?
Yeah, the S1A Saddle Avenue to Newtown, it says 4,400 linear feet of trail connecting Newtown Road to Yellow Jasmine, completing the Marvin Loop. Is that really Newtown Road to Yellow Jasmine, or is that all the way from Saddle around the corner?
I'm going to have to defer to Hunter on that one.
And is this part of the federal grant? So this is our portion of what we have to pay in order to get paid back?
Yes, it is. The way the master plan had it broken out was weird. Like, if you go look at it, S1A, S1B, it's weird.
Okay.
But yes, S1A, what we ended up doing is that is the rest of our grant portion match. Yes. So from basically Saddle to here, to Yellow Jasmine.
Okay,
Or
that's
to,
fine. And what's the 120,000 of engineering? Come back, come back. Is that also for the loop that's part of the federal grant?
That's for the
so
remaining loop.
are you talking about Wheatfield to Saddle,
I don't know, I'm talking about
the S1B?
fiscal year 24, 25, 120, engineering.
Yeah, that would be for engineering for the remaining portion. So from Wheatfield off of Joe Carr to Saddle.
Wait, hold on, from where to where?
The end of the current trail at Wheatfield, which is the entrance there, Marvin Creek off of Joe Carr. So it'd be the remaining portion from there, down Joe Carr to Marvin Road, and then up Marvin Road to Saddle.
So this is not part of the federal grant?
Correct.
This 120, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
There's parts of that quote-unquote loop that, for construction, planning, engineering, any of that, is not part of the grant. So
No, that's why I want to know,
Yeah.
is this 120 part of the grant that
No.
we're getting and/or have to pay for? This is totally separate from that,
Correct.
both of these 120s.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, I'm good, thank you.
Just one question about the roundabout project, and I see like the first year they have 64,260, and when you look at the detail, that 47,250, that's what we already paid for the engineering, correct?
we paid engineering, it was around $40,000 to $50,000. The next portion is around 60 to 70, and it's for right-of-way, if I
Okay.
remember correctly. Is that right, Hunter?
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Are there any questions further on the CIP? Okay, we'll put this back on the next budget work session, if you guys can just read through it before that takes place. All right, you guys ready for the budget? Mr. Mayor, you ready?
Sure.
I don't know if you procedurally have to read the title, or we're ready to move on to the next item.
Give me a sec here. Next up, we have discussion of fiscal year 2024, 2025 budget.
So I first and foremost want to thank Jill and staff for helping to put this together. It's been a long process. We do have a very tight budget, and it's kind of hard to make things work sometimes, so we really have to get in and try to make appropriate cuts and really be diligent about what we're asking for, and then we have to cut those things on the back end. So thank you all to everyone that was involved in this process. And I'm going to go really high level because I do want to leave some time for you all to ask some questions. You can look at the very first page of the revenues and total expenditures. We have presented a balanced budget to you all with no tax increase proposed, but we did have to make some major cuts that I'm not really sure you guys are going to be comfortable with. So I just wanted to kind of go through and make sure we can see everything. So we did bump up on the revenue, the ad valorem, just a little bit because we have had a little bit of growth. It's only 3%. We don't have any official letters from the county yet. I'm sorry, 2%, 2%. We don't have the official letter from the county. We project to get that in April. So that number may change by the time you see this next. Pretty much every other revenue line item has remained stable. You do see an increase in POW bill revenues. That is because we have increased our mileage slightly, so that number has gone up a little bit. Everything else remains the same. The sales and service has gone down just a little bit, and we can go over that in just on the next slide. Our investment earnings are projected a little higher than last year. That's because we're seeing some really good activity there. And the unassigned fund balance, we are requesting $75,000. That is for the truck purchase that you just heard about. There's some tree needs on Marvin Eford Park, removal of trees, and all right, the master plan, the Marvin Heritage District master plan. And then the expenditures match the total revenues that we have currently budgeted. General government is actually down 7%. We have an increase in planning slightly due to the need of additional personnel there. And public safety, we do not have a letter back from the county, but we're projecting a 4% increase. Transportation is down slightly, and as well as Parks and Recreation, which you'll see here shortly. We do have an increase in solid waste services. However, we are not projecting an increase that the residents will see currently. That's just due to sheer growth. We do have a 9% deduction in public works, and then we have 0 budgeted for contingency. And that's very important for y'all to listen to, because in years past, we have budgeted at least $50,000. We have not had that opportunity to do that this year, so any little projects that come up that you guys tap into the contingency, we will not have that opportunity this year. You can flip over to the next page, which is the revenue tab.
Christina, why do we not have anything in contingency?
We do not have the available funds to put in contingency.
Okay, well,
And
we need to find some. That's not acceptable. So we're gonna have to cut some stuff somewhere, so. Just make a note of that. and-
We need to address it in one form. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna sit here and, because it wouldn't be fair to say we need to just cut something. We need to have a contingency balance in there, like we always have, and then if that's done through cuts, let's certainly look at that, but we can't continue to, I don't believe, sit here and think that we can fund the Village of Marvin for the next 20 years off 6 cents. And I don't think anyone that has any kind of fiscal understanding would accept that either, and we got to have it a contingency.
Okay, we're making notes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving over to the ad valorem, you see that increase slightly. Again, that's, we hopefully that will go up slightly when we get the letter back from the county, but we won't know that until April. Everything else has pretty much remained stable in there. You can see the itemized breakdown of the unrestricted intergovernmental totals. They're relatively the same as what we're doing the year-end estimate at. Slight increase in local sales, slight increase in utility. Beer and wine stays the same. Slight decrease in the local sales tax refund because we're not spending as much money this upcoming year. We won't have as much that we receive back. Again, POW bill's gone up about $20,000 due to us increasing the amount of roads that we've taken over. We did keep in the motor vehicle tag fee, so I know you guys need to talk about that at a later date, but that is in here as if the sunset does not happen. So that's the $93,000 that you see there. Zoning permits, development fees, all that's pretty much remained stable, as well as the reimbursable engineering fees. Total permits and fees are around $150. Sales and service has gone down. The reason that has gone down is because we did not budget for revenues for Marvin Day. That's something that the subcommittee decided that we needed to do a budgeted allocation instead of doing and relying on sponsors and donors for the year. So that's why that has gone down pretty drastically. You'll see in the expenditure side of things, we actually had to cut Marvin Day out of the event, so we can talk about that when we get there. But that is something that we did subsequently cut. Investment earnings, you see that pretty stable from last year. Miscellaneous revenue, pretty much the same. Fund balance for streets appropriated at $48,000, and we'll get to that in just a second. Solid waste, remains stable. And again, the fund balance appropriation is actually, we just changed it to 80. Again, that's for the master plan for Marvin Heritage District, some tree removal that's needed at Marvin Eford Park, and then the vehicle and public works. Any questions on revenues? We'll talk about the expenditures on that end, but any questions specifically on revenues? Okay. Moving over to general government. You see the salaries and employee benefits totals relatively the same as last year. Professional services has gone down from the estimated actuals. We did have a lot of professional services in this previous year's budget. We are not putting those in here. That's pretty much stable minus those items. We have the professional dues and membership dues there. They're pretty much all stable. Any questions on those? I know I'm going through this fast, but we'll have plenty of time to look over the detail. Moving over to the next page, we have all the training and travel. It's all listed out there and itemized out. We did break it out a little bit more this year. In the operating expenses, we have all the liability insurance. I do have some manager discretionary funding there as things pop up. It's only budgeted for $13,000. That's very minor in comparison to previous years. We do have all of our bank copying, mileage, postage, all that stuff listed there. Relatively stable from the current year. Software, telephone, all of that fun stuff is relatively stable from the previous year. And then you have in the next item, your debt service for Village Hall, interest payments, facility maintenance, electricity, and then your capital computer furniture items, which is pretty minor. Any questions on that? General government? Okay, moving on to planning and zoning. Everything is the exact same in planning and zoning. We did have a, oh, okay. Sorry, we will have one minor change to this, sorry. Planning and zoning consultant's gonna go down, but it was a net zero impact from you all. We're replacing, we had one item in there that we were replacing with the truck purchase. So it's a net wash. Salaries and all of that have gone up slightly because we do actually have one full-time position in here. Hunter desperately needs some help. We've said this for several years. We've been pushing it off. He's the only one in his department. We do have a part-time position right now that she's helping and done very, very good. We're hoping to put her into a full-time position, and that's where you see that budgeted here. We do desperately need some redundancy in that department as well. Engineering's stable from the previous years. Urban Forester is the same. We've already got the dues back from them. Training and travel is all the same. Everything pretty much in his line items are the same. Any questions on any of that? Flipping over to the next page is public safety. Again, that's pretty much a wash. Every year, we pay that out. It's a contractual service. We really have no control over that. We did budget for a 4% increase. Usually we see around a 3 or a 4, so we feel like that's really going to be what it is. Any questions on that? Moving over to transportation. Transportation, there's nothing really major in here. Engineering, road repair and maintenance. I mean, this is your pretty typical stuff. There's nothing crazy in here that you guys haven't seen before. We did start itemizing out to help the deficit on the general fund side. We did start itemizing out percentage salaries that basically touch Powell Bill. That would be Davey. I mean, he works in Powell Bill daily. I work in Powell Bill daily, and so does Jill. So we did start itemizing and percentaging out a portion of those salaries so that it was a less impact on taxpayers. Any questions on that? All right, moving over to Parks and Rec. Salaries and all that remain the same, as well as travel and training, membership dues, utility payments at Marvin Eford Park. All of that's the same in operating expenses. Events is where you see some decreases. We did, if you look at the Marvin Day line item, we did completely cut that. We also cut Tyler's request for the off-duty EMS and the respective event signage that would be associated with Marvin Day. So that is something that you all will need to discuss moving forward if that's an event we really want to keep. And then moving over to the next page, he has 49, no, he does not have any capital improvement. We did cut that already. We cut all of his capital improvement projects, as I mentioned earlier. And then we also did cut the trails and ongoing loop maintenance allocation. I think we have an ordinance that we wanted to at least put a couple $1,000s in there every year for ongoing maintenance. That's to fund, lawnmowers that break down because they're not cheap. They're, $10,000, $15,000. We did have to cut that because we don't have funding for that. And that summarizes his budget. Do y'all want to spend some time talking about Marvin Day or any cuts that we've made there?
I don't like the idea of cutting maintenance budgets. I'm going to wear up right down whether we have money or not. And we've got to find a way to keep those funds in there.
You can just make a note, maintenance.
So what approach are we taking? And I ask that from a standpoint of, do we just make cuts to what we currently have at our current tax rate and throw everything else out for the sake of not doing this? And that's only going to catch up to us in the future. If we think for a second that we're just going to just continue to make cuts, just stay at 6 cents, this stuff is going to catch up, whether it's the trails, whether it's the roads, whether it's the just maintaining all of this. And we have to have, it's not fun, but we're going to have the adult conversation around doing this. Because when I see that, and you're doing what you're doing. You're saying, okay, we're going to make all of these cuts to make 6 cents work. And then there is a element of people that are out there that are saying, that's what's supposed to happen. Never raise taxes. Well, I can never do anything else to my house. And then at some point in time, I'm going to have to put $150,000 into it to bring it up to par, because I haven't done the $3,000 a year for the past 5 years to get it, to maintain it. So which one do I want? Do I want for over 5 years, do I want the, $3,000 a year, that's $15,000, or do I want the one lump sum 5 years from now to be $100,000? So I appreciate what you're doing here, but I think listen, I get what happened with the GO bond, but that cannot deter us from running the Village of Marvin. And so we just have to look at this and do a deeper dive. As I said before with the other piece, we just have to do a deeper dive. And that deeper dive has to include, do we just push everything off and kick the can down the road let's kick the can down the road for another council. That would be nice for us to do. That would be very easy for this council to do, because then the new council that wants to come in and save the Village of Marvin, they are going to have to address it. And then they are going to have to go to the public and say, well, we need to raise taxes. And then they're going to try to blame us because we didn't do the adult conversation to raise taxes. So you're squeezing the balloon, and at some point in time, we're just going to have to. And I'm all open for it. And I firmly believe this current council, is up to having that adult conversation about this. But just going about it by saying we're just going to cut everything down to bare bones, so that we can say it's just 6 cents. I don't know, again, I'm going to make the statement again. If you have any kind of fiscal responsibility or consideration of fiscal responsibility, it would not look good upon us to just do what the path that we're going on right now.
So we have, staff has, Jill and I have actually, when we make these cuts, we did it so we can reverse it. So if you guys want at the next work session for us to give you what was presented and show you that deficit, and then you can figure out how you're going to address that, we can
And that's
definitely.
where I was going with
Okay.
my statement.
Okay.
Because, again, let's find the deficit, and then we can go back and look at some of the cuts. And some are warranted, I get, but some are not. Some are gonna cost us 3- and 4-fold down the road. I think our approach, we just need to re-look at our approach at doing
Okay.
it. Thank
We
you.
can do that, and I'll finish going through real fast, because we're almost done with this.
Thank you.
And we can definitely, is that what everyone wants us to do? Yep. Okay.
Have you already done that, though, sort of done that, go down the road and kind of know what we're looking at?
Yes, yeah. Yeah. All right, moving over to solid waste. Flip over a couple of pages, you'll see solid waste is just 2 line items. Again, to help cut that deficit that would be borne to taxpayers as a tax increase, we did start percentaging out the solid waste folks. Again, same people that I just mentioned earlier on Powell Bill, we started itemizing out their salaries to those applicable services. So that's a lesser impact to taxpayers. That solid waste that solid waste fee to residents will remain the same, but we were able to cut down a little bit on the general fund side. Moving over to the last department, which is Public Works. Salaries and expenditures. You see kind of some variations there because we actually took a lot of the Parks and Recreation employees and moved them over to Public Works. We reclassified those folks. So that's why you're seeing some wonky numbers there. We pretty much cut everything in this budget, to be completely honest with you. Bare bones maintenance and approach to maintaining what we currently have. He did ask for a lot more. Chemicals, fertilizers, all that stuff are very expensive. We cut a lot of that stuff out. We can put that back. And then he also had some holiday materials in there so we could make Village Hall look a little more festive this upcoming year. We subsequently cut that. And you see the park tree pruning and removal. We have a lot of dead trees and trees that need to be cut for safety measures. That's in there. We did not cut that, but we did do a fund balance appropriation for that because we felt like it was necessary. And aside from that, that pretty much summarizes everything.
We did add the 30,000 back on his.
Oh, okay, sorry. Where it says the Park Village projects, we did add 30,000 back there. But that, again, that goes back to where I said it's a net non-effect when we move the consultant out of the planning and zoning. It's the same exact amount. That number will look different when you see this again, is what I'm saying. But net, it's a net zero effect. So we can go back to the drawing board and do exactly what Councilman Lyon asked for. We do have about 5 minutes left. Does anyone have any specific questions about anything that you're seeing just off the cuff?
I mean, this is a little number, but what are we painting and staining?
At Public Works?
Yeah,
The Marvin Eford Park, the barn.
the barn. Well, I thought it was the playset, and we got rid of that, so that's why I was wondering.
Does anyone have any more questions? Sorry that was rushed.
No.
We have
that's-
plenty of
I think
time,
that served its purpose for right now.
Okay. So hopefully we'll spend some more time on this. We may get some more numbers back from the county. We also have a 3 or 4% increase projected for insurance. Maybe that number comes down. It's a very small drop in the bucket, but we've got some projections in here, what we think we're going to see, and hopefully we're wrong. And we come back and we're able to give you some more money to help balance that budget.
Can we just put the CIP on the work session?
Yeah.
Just like maybe
Mhm.
everybody kind of mull over it over the next couple of weeks and really go through it. And then we can just take a little bit of time to talk about it.
Absolutely.
All right, that'd be great.
That's all I have, sir.
Any other questions from council? I'm assuming if, well, we will adjourn, but if, I guess if you have any questions as council in the meantime between now and our thing, take it to you, or which one? We have questions on.
You can bring it to me, and I should be able to answer them.
All right, with that, no more questions, I'll need a motion to adjourn the village council budget work session meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. So we'll take a few-minute break here and be back on at 6 o'clock, for a regular meeting. No. All right. I'd like to call to order Village Council regular meeting, March 12, 2024. I show the time at 6:03. I also show we have a full quorum at hand, so we do not need to allow remote participation since we're all here. First up, we have adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes or removals?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Sorry. I want to add under unfinished business, number 1, discussion of stream rehabilitation
Get it
grant,
out.
which is, STRAP is the short abbreviation.
Okay.
Sorry. And then number 2, the GEO bond project debrief. And then Q, closed session, recess into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A3 to consult with the attorney retained by the public body to preserve the attorney-client privilege.
And where does that come in? At the
Q, closed session.
Okay, I got it. All right.
Sorry, and that's all I
So
have.
did he make those changes?
Yes, they're on
Okay.
there.
All right, very good. Any other changes? Hearing none, I'll need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Further discussion? All is in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Next up, we have adoption of the previous minutes. Did you guys all get a chance to read those? I know we had some specific comments on the second one. I believe Austin had asked how he wanted to write it, so if you guys wanted any specific comments that you made in that work session, probably now be the time to speak. Otherwise, I think it's fine as it was presented.
I'm good. I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes from 2/29/24 work session and 3/5/24 joint with planning board meetings as presented.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you all. All right. Next up, we're going right into public comment period. I hope if you want to speak, you were to sign up. So Austin, do we have?
We do have a few people signed up. First
Okay.
up is Deb Barry.
So a quick reminder, state your name, address, and Kim's in charge of the time. It's 3 minutes for public comment. We have a policy where there's no dialogue and discussion, so present your case, and then we'll move on to the next public comment. Who's up first?
Deb Barry of 3310 Waxhaw Marvin Road.
Hey, everybody, I'm going to be pretty brief, I believe. You have in your package the Waxhaw Marvin Greenway opposition petition package, and that's what I spearheaded. My understanding is that you had all agreed to not pursue that regardless of the bonds passing or not passing. And due to that, I want to thank Jamie, who I had talked to initially, for his supporting that, as well as John. So I'm not going to stand up here and try to convince you, obviously, to stop it, because it's already been stopped. So instead, what I want to do, because I don't know if you had a chance to look at the material, but instead I just want to give you a quick summary of the points and then go on to what I do want to ask you to do. So the summary is, of course, it's unsafe due to the car accidents which leave the road, and 24 of them since 2018. That does not include the accidents at the point, the actual intersection of Bonds Grove and Waxhaw Marvin. Those are more accidents, which obviously should be solved by the roundabout eventually. We want to retain the horse and country atmosphere of that stretch. That's really the second reason. And of course, 100% of the homeowners on both sides of the road that signed the petition were adamantly against it, really for those two reasons as well. So just kind of the quick summary of it. I consequently would like you to consider somehow doing a written summary of those points attached to the master plan. My suggestion is just an addendum needs to be made that is a place not only for this issue, but I assume other upcoming issues to where people push back. When an engineering study is done, they discover, you know, it's just not, it has too many physical issues to do. Some place that those are written in for future councils to refer to, so that we don't go through this again. I mean, it was a large effort, I will suggest to you on my part. And, you know, and the homeowners that I chatted with, every one of them were adamant. So it'll happen again. You know, if another council comes up and says, oh, why didn't we do that? It's just going to happen again. So I think some type of written spot that is available to everyone for, you know, ongoing for reference would be wise. So that's really what I'm asking for now. I'll also, in my observation of going through this, is why didn't the key people in charge of that decision, why didn't you know about the accident issue and the homeowners' resistance prior? Why didn't you know? I gave this council a written assessment of that back in June of 2020. All right, well, those are the points. Those are pretty much the points. All right, you're welcome.
Next up is Lauren Thomas, 3025 Groves Edge Lane.
Hi there, Lauren Thomas, 3025 Groves Edge Lane. I want to thank you for acknowledging that your trail planning decisions related to the Marvin Creek Connector Trail have been out of sync with your own zoning ordinances at your January 25th work session. This experience has revealed to many people that the village needs more accountability. I urge you to consider the role and mission of PRNG Advisory Board and involve them. When I shared this information with them at their March 5th meeting, I learned that they were not aware of this trail issue and nor were they consulted on the project. On February 29th, the village learned that building a trail on any flood zone is going to be extremely costly, and you admittedly didn't have the budget for it. So I want to thank you for tabling the discussion to move forward until after the results of the GO bond. On March 5th, 81% of Marvin residents voted against your GO bonds, so we ask that you remove the Marvin Creek Connector Trail from the master plan for several reasons. One, it's cost prohibitive. You have no money for a lower priority project like this, so save the village's funds and direct every dollar towards higher priorities. For example, the Bonds Grove Roundabout is a very high priority in our shared community. Number two, it's unnecessary for connectivity. Due to an existing culvert on Saddle Avenue, neighbors from Marvin Creek and Marvin Estates can already connect to one another, and we can easily access the Village Hall via Groves Edge to Marvin School Road. And number three, residents don't want it, and not just one or two. Due to the village's incompetence around federal permitting requirements, an online petition was launched on February 26th requesting that the village nullifies the trail easement and leave the land untouched, and 150 Marvin residents have signed it. So thank you for acknowledging that mistakes were made. Specifically, those mistakes include not having the federal permits when you plowed through the Marvin Creek HOA common area. You confused our HOA board prior to signing the trail easements by stating that permits were not needed, and you didn't disclose that the trail's connection to a newly zoned commercial district. Your own zoning ordinances state that if a developer gave false statements or encroached on floodplains without the proper permits, you could revoke their permit. We ask that the village is held accountable to their own standards and nullifies the Marvin Creek Connector Trail easement. You would be missing the point to call this a NIMBY issue. We told you on July 24th that FEMA approvals were needed. The village didn't listen. You hastily gained an easement without integrity, and you seem to have broken federal legislation in the process. So rightly so, Marvin Creek residents feel violated, And not only would your zoning ordinance agree with us that multiple violations have occurred, but it also states that there are penalties for such violations. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all who signed up.
All right, terrific. Thank you for your comments. Next up, we have presentation, reports and updates. We're going into, first one is manager's report. What you got, Christine? Oh, sorry, I didn't have my speaker on.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to update you real fast on the meadowlark plantings. I'm actually going to turn it over to Davey. He has some further information. I think he met with the HOA, and Jen Castellucci, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm going to turn it over and let him address those concerns.
Yes, thank you, Christina. The roundabout that was completed back in the fall of 2023 at Newtown, Marvin, and Meadowlark Lane. During that construction, Meadowlark Lane was rerouted somewhat to be incorporated into the roundabout. When that took place, they vacated a road bed for where the Meadowlark Lane previously was located. At the time, there was some discussion or some requests to try to help deter traffic from actually driving onto the old road bed by adding some plantings along that strip of road. Now, the DOT had, after the project was over, it came in and added some grass seed and all of that, and they've overseeded that, so it's come up pretty well in the right-of-way as well as the road itself. Previous discussions with some residents, the request from that meeting was that staff address the wooded area between the old road bed and the new Meadowlark Lane. Small strip of woods, but it does have some issues that come with it. They've requested that we remove everything 4 inches in diameter and smaller. We cut the falling and leaning tree actually that is on the property. It's a pretty good sized tree. It's high up in the air. It's higher than staff can actually cut and drop safely to the ground, so it would require some form of professional tree service that has the proper equipment to do that. But it would be to drop the tree and leave it on the property itself. And then cut away all of the existing ivy that are on the trees on that lot as well. Cut it, remove it, pull it away from the stumps or from the roots itself. The request for the plantings for that road bed consist of 2 magnolia trees, 3 beech trees, possibly an oak tree, and then a variety of plants from lindera to aster to lantanas. And so I just want to give you an update on where we were with that request.
The tree you're removing is dead, I assume?
It's dead. I think it fell over and pulled up the roots with it, but it's lodged itself among another couple of trees, and so it needs to be taken down in sections and
people are
dropped.
driving through there?
Well, no, sir. It's the roundabout. You stay on the
Yeah.
roundabout, but because there was an opening where the old previous road bed was, it's between the 2 properties. So the old road bed runs through there. There was some concern that people were used to driving along that stretch of the road bed and that they would accidentally drive onto it. To my knowledge, that's not taken place since the fall, and there is a good stand of grass on that road bed.
I hadn't paid much attention lately to it, but I know exactly what you're talking about, so, okay. Any questions from council?
Yeah, all right, so I have absolutely no issue with maintaining what's there. I don't want to spend any money planning anything there until we have an idea of what the Heritage District is going to look like, if there are going to be improvements or what have you. And I don't want to spend money and then rip it back out to do something different. There's nobody driving through that spot. Grass has grown in nicely. It's stabilized the soil. It looks fine. If you need to take down a tree because it's a hazard, because it's dead, I have no issue with that. And if you need to take care of some vines that might be strangling some of the healthy trees that are there, that's perfectly fine too. But I don't want to spend a bunch of money in there that could be wasteful when we don't have a clear plan as to how that's going to be developed in the fairly near future, hopefully. So that's my 2 cents.
I agree with that, Andy.
Any other comments? Yeah, so
So-
maybe just clean it up a little bit, the ivies and stuff like that for now, as far as rather than putting a budget to it, because if you're just talking trees, that can get into the couple thousands of dollars that we may change that whole
Yeah.
look over there.
I mean, obviously vines are subject to kill more healthy trees, so obviously we want to address the vines that could be choking out the bigger trees, which would cause a safety concern. Getting rid of the dead one is certainly a safety concern. Those are things that are immediate need. I would proceed with those, but as far as like adding anything to that right now, I just want to wait on that until we have a better, clear picture of how that's going to look.
So is that the consensus of the council? So just so we're aware, we're only going to address safety issues, we're not going with the original planting agreement? Is that
Yeah.
what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I would agree.
Safety issues and get rid of the vines that are killing what's there. We might as well eradicate that. Thank you. All right.
Is that it for you, Christina?
That's all for me. I have one thing in roads.
That's what I was going to ask. You're done. You're good, okay. Let's go on to the planner's report.
Just the main thing is wrapping up the Marvin Heritage, or the Marvin Development Ordinance. I've already met with 3 of you guys and scheduled meetings for the other 3 to kind of get through the final, kind of the feedback from council to incorporate in for planning board next week. Other than that, it's really, I think I've got all to update unless council has any specific questions. For the MDO, it's tentatively will be May, your guys' May regular meeting, which I think is May 12th. Yes, sir. It will be, as long as everything goes through as planned, planning board will have the final, draft, clean version at the April meeting. They'll make the recommendation to council during their planning board meeting. Council will then call for a public hearing at the April work session, public hearing then held in May, so. The public hearing is for, any comment, feedback from the public regarding the new regulations. This new ordinance will basically repeal and replace our chapter 150, 151, and also replace certain languages in chapters 93, which is trees, 96, which is nuisance, and I think 92, which is noise. But at the same time, with the new ordinance basically establishing new zoning districts, the regulations are very like in those zoning districts line up with what our current is, but it's reclassifying. We'll also be doing basically a village-wide rezoning to basically classify all properties to the corresponding districts in the new ordinance. So it'll all be done in one fell swoop, so that's the time to do it.
We talked about this earlier, but I've said this before, people don't realize this in the community. If the circus wants to come to town and meet with us, we do have to meet with them. We don't have to approve them, but we do have to meet with them. So all uses are on the table, it's just, would they be allowed in the Heritage District specifically, or Marvin for that matter, anytime someone sees it. So there's a little confusion there. We learned a lot recently at the joint meeting with the planning board, sorry. So that was good information, but I just want to make that clear. But that's a good time for the community to come out and speak, so. Any other questions for Hunter? All right. Thank you. Next up, roads report.
I had one thing, Mr. Mayor. The Bonds Grove, Waxhaw, Marvin roundabout, I do have a conference call with the federal state highway folks on Friday at 10 a.m. If any of you all want to be a part of that conversation, I could allow, I think, 3 without there being a quorum. So anyone that wants to attend that meeting, just let me know. We're going to get some information from them about the timelines and everything that you all requested at your last meeting. So I do have some answers, but we wanted to get things solidified from them. And I did give you the crash data that you were asking for. It looks like the majority of the accidents are happening between 7 and 9 a.m. You do have a couple of them, a couple of influx on the 3 to 5 p.m., but the majority of them are on the 7 to 9. That item is on your next work session, just so you know. But you have that information, and if y'all have any questions about the roundabout as a whole, just let me know. I've provided the contracts to you all, and we will have that meeting on Friday, so I'll have some more information at that point in time.
I'd like to be included Friday.
Did you talk to AMT?
For the pavement condition survey, I did, yes. Our engineer is currently out of town. They are working on a proposal to submit to us. They should have it back probably by next week.
Great, thank you.
And that's all I have.
Any other questions? Thank you, Christina. Moving on. Deputies report. Tommy, how are you, sir?
Last month, we had a total of 782 calls for service. Warmer weather is coming in. We've started seeing a influx in people starting to speed. We're going to be out vigorously enforcing the speeding laws and trying to curb that. Also, we've had a lot of complaints about mufflers popping and stuff like that. We will be on top of that also. I found a statute for that and actually have charged it here recently. So hopefully we will get that under control also. Do y'all have any questions, anything for me?
You have on your report here, one burglary.
That actually should be B&E to a vehicle. Somebody left their vehicle unlocked, and the officer who took it miscategorized it and put it in as a burglary instead of a B&E of a motor vehicle.
Okay. Thanks for the message. I think there was a public message that went out to all the residents, and I think we have also seen it on the news where we have, I guess there's a group out of Mecklenburg County. I don't know if they're associated with MS-13 or some kind of gang or whatever, but we just do need to be more vigilant. And
If anybody sees anything that looks out of the ordinary, please call in on 911. I know in the past, we've been getting calls coming straight into our office. I'll be honest with you, I go into the office for about 5 minutes, maybe once during my 2-week shift. So the best thing, if somebody sees something that just doesn't look right, is to call in on 911. That way, it will get somebody dispatched out, where if I go into my office and I'm, there maybe once every week or 5 days, I won't get that message. So if there's anybody out there who does see something, we want them to call in on 911.
And do we see that our radar signs, it says slow down, or do you see that that's making an impact?
I think so, yes. But once again, the warmer weather is coming in and people will be out on the road, so they will probably try to test their speedometer, unfortunately, on some of those radar signs, and they better be careful because we'll probably be behind those radar signs somewhere waiting to give out a ticket.
Thank you for what you do.
Yes, sir.
So that burglary should have been categorized as a burglary to vehicle, which you have 2 of.
Yes.
Were those 3 related in the same area? Were they in disparate areas?
That I'm not 100% sure. I just tried to check because I was curious myself. My computer is down at the time, and I was not able to check, but I could get that information for you as soon as we get internet connection on the computer.
Yeah, because sometimes you find they might hit 2 or 3 houses right in a row or something like that, so that'd be interesting to know.
Like I
Okay,
said,
thank you.
I personally haven't taken any of the B&Es to any of the motor vehicles, so, but I did check for that one because that one concerned me, and it was to a motor vehicle instead of a house.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. All right. Next up, Planning Board report.
All right, we had 3 meetings. We had one on February 20th and convened on the 22nd, and then we had our joint one. They all basically focused on the fact of the, between all of them, monument sign for the new community down over on Waxhaw Marvin Road. What's that? Broadmoor. Yeah, Broadmoor. Thank you. We focused on Article 8 for the Heritage District and what that's categorized on the Marvin Development Ordinance. And then we also touched on the elevations of Heritage at Marvin, and so that was on the previous earlier meeting. So that's what we focused on.
Any questions for Bob? Thank you, Bob. Next up, PR&G Board Report.
Yes,
That was Planning Board. PR&G?
yep. We did have our regularly scheduled meeting. Public comment, we did have public comment in regards to the Preserve Trail Connector. In terms of the meeting itself, we had a pretty involved discussion around what we were talking about with the tree nursery. They did a lot of research, especially Christina Culp, in gathering information and talking about that. This would be so that rather than having to go out and purchase trees, we might dedicate some area of the park or somewhere like that, that we would start to create a nursery. It seems that one of the best ways to do it is to kind of make a trough of gravel and to grow them within gravel, because then when you go to relocate them, you don't really disturb the roots. It's one of the best ways to do it, and it also allows them to grow faster, and you can grow more in a smaller area. We were kind of surprised by the fact that that you could kind of grow so many in a condensed area, but that leads to other complications. You need to be in an area that's convenient to water and so forth. So we kind of tasked staff with kind of thinking about some ideas of where we might do it. You can't just use like driveway gravel, which is real pointy and so forth. You almost have to use pea gravel if you're going to do it. So we're still kind of kicking that can down the road, gathering some more information to see if it's something that would be a feasible project or not.
I'll just add that I know it's on the consent agenda. Christina Traub, who was the only one who applied for a board position. I believe, Wayne, you talked to her, she mentioned, and you did. I talked to her actually today. Turns out I used to teach her kid at Faith Formation and stuff, so that goes back years and years ago. But she's been here for 20+ years, almost 20, since before 1990s, I want to say. And very sweet, and we're looking forward to, I think we were given an opportunity to reach out to her and talk to her, but she was back in the days when Lanny was here, so.
Yeah, she's from Canterfield Creek, where
Yes.
Lanny was from.
I think she was a neighbor.
I had the opportunity to have a conversation with her, which, we spoke about at the last meeting when we kind of tabled it. I also reached out to Jennifer Castellucci, who's now our chair of the PRG. She had an opportunity to speak to her. We invited her to come to the meeting just to kind of see
said
how
she can.
how it rolls, and she did come and attend. And, other folks had an opportunity to ask, any questions of her. But, yeah, we all, by and large, felt she's a very good candidate. And I know my recommendation would be to move forward. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Great, thank you. Next up, event planning report. Tyler.
Just a couple updates. March 23rd, we'll have the Easter egg hunt. We'll have 3 separate hunts, one at 10 a.m., one at 11:15 a.m., and one at 12:30 p.m. You can find more details on our website and on our Instagram and stuff like that. Following that, on April 27th is Marvin Day. It'll begin at 4 p.m. We'll have live music by the Breakfast Club. We'll have food trucks. We'll have Americana Brewery, a lot of huge kids zone, bounce houses, face painting, things of that nature. So definitely come out and join us for that. That'll be at Eford Park. We'll be running a shuttle from Marvin Ridge High School to the park. So if you're interested in coming out, we'll have very limited parking at the park on site. So definitely remember that and plan to park at the high school. Following that, next event, June 1st, we'll have our 5K. It'll be held, and health fair. It'll be held at the elementary school right here. 5K will be at 9 a.m., and the family fun run, which would be about a mile run or walk for the kids, will be at 10. We'll also have a blood drive truck and things of that nature, so it'll be a good little time to come hang out and run if you're interested, even if you're not. After that, update on our newest event or program. On July 12th, we will do our stargazing event out at Eford Park. You'll see more about this online coming up. It'll begin at 7:30 p.m. This will be a event that you have to register for. We will cap it at 30 participants. Parents, you can bring your kids out. It'll be a great opportunity to learn about the solar system, and our instructor will have telescopes and really cool things, and it'll be a really good evening to come out and do something kind of different out at the park. So that'll be on July 12th. And that's pretty much it for events right now.
Tyler, can you remind everybody of the meeting? I believe it's the 15th of April?
Yes,
for
so,
Council and
yes, with the
various
council,
staff members.
yes, we will be having a Marvin Day meeting that day. I have sent some calendar
If it's not there
invites.
already. It should be on your calendar.
If you guys, we'll just pretty much go over duties and things that we expect and what we'll need the day before, day of, just to make this a really great and successful Marvin Day again. So look forward to that.
And real quick, RSVPs for Easter egg, have you done that, or just?
No,
rolling the
just
dice on that?
show up. Yeah, you'll see online that 0 to 3-year-olds are at 10, 4 to 6-year-olds are at 11:15, and 7 to 10-year-olds are at 12:30. So feel free to come out. We'll have DJ playing some good music. Parking will be there at the park. Hopefully it's a really nice day like this, praying for a weekend, no rain, and enjoy the day.
Good on volunteers for Marvin Day? Looking good?
Yes, yes, sir.
Good.
Everything's looking good. Any
Any
questions?
other questions? Thank you, sir. Next up, coffee with council debrief.
I'll take this, and John Barisich will pitch in when he needs to. We met on March 7th with over 14 concerned residents, and I'll try to take what went over in 2 hours, which it wound up being more of a town hall meeting than it did a coffee with council. But I'll try to, I went through all of the notes and everything and everybody said. I know there were some people in the audience here that did attend, so I hope I represent in my notes, what we went over. I would put it basically in 4 categories. I think the meeting opened up regarding the bond referendum, sort of in the manner of, what were we thinking when we put that forth, and the items in there, the costs, the amounts, and what do you think the village would respond? And it started out that way. It then evolved to communication, and we talked about that a lot of coffee councils, a lot of town hall meetings, council meetings, are not attended because the villagers are watching. They are seeing on what and how we conduct ourselves during each meeting. And they have heard things, and basically what they've heard is that, okay, so the bond didn't go through, so now that means that the roundabout's not going to maybe be considered. Even though there was no decision on that, it may not be considered. And then there was conversation that went to, so we're putting in an amphitheater, maybe the money from that can go towards the roundabout. As we went and evolved, we've got to, obviously, the Marvin Creek Connector Trail easement. And sort of, though everybody was very complimentary about the staff, they basically felt in general that maybe sometimes the staff didn't communicate in this particular issue on certain things with the council regarding this connector trail. And then it evolved to, we got to the Heritage at Marvin, and basically the Heritage District, and that evolving with the fact that there's going to be 68 homes, And, we then got to the survey. Some suggestions were brought up that maybe the survey that we acted on with the bond referendum is not accurate, and that the previous administrations that put that together, maybe they really weren't on that, so maybe we need to do a new one if we're going to go forth. What came also out of it was how about everybody understood we have a need for roads, and by the way, not everybody was happy that we, are getting in the road business from previous administrations. So how are we going to handle that? And maybe we ought to have another bond referendum just for the roads. It was explained that, that it's costly and it costs money, but that was some of the suggestions that were made. Some of the other takeaways that I've got is a concern about communication in general, that in future, as we go forth, and everybody knows that this is the first bond that the village has ever put forth, that maybe we ought to have a closer communication with the communities and what the people want. And yes, we did do a very good job in communicating to all about this bond referendum and the education behind it. Some people in the audience were not real happy with some of the social media and some of the information that came from that, but they felt like maybe we would be more in touch as a council if we got with HOAs and had a stronger HOA council, HOA communication. In other words, maybe all of the HOA presidents or the communities meet with the council, and before we put forth anything like this in the future, that we actually talk to the folks and say, here's what we're thinking, kind of thing, with the HOA communities, and getting the message out that way. The last thing that was kind of brought up was basically they felt that in what they were hearing, whether it be true or not true, conceived or misconceived, they felt like sometimes the tone of the council, of what they viewed, might be, the tone, tenor might be a little bit better. John?
Yeah, no, I think you've done a really good job encapsulating a lot of it. I think it was interesting, a lot of folks said, well, it's not like we don't want anything out of those lists of projects. It's just we don't want everything out of those lists of projects. So, even the folks that were most fervent, about one particular issue or another, seem to recognize the fact that there were portions of things that are in there that do need to eventually get done one way or the other. So, I think it was, some of them cautioning us to not just look at it as just a black and white thing of yes everything or no everything. Couple of other points, I know there was the discussion around communicating more to HOA councils. I did share with them that we really did have an HOA President's Council that was meeting regularly for a couple of years, and eventually it just kind of petered out. And I also shared, I am an HOA president. I also shared that, while I'm diligent in trying to get, communications that are asked to be put out, that I'll often ask people in neighborhoods, and it's happened even on council, did your HOA board pass those messages on? And in many cases, they don't. So, we've always had a pretty good relationship with the HOA presidents, but I can't necessarily promise the public that we can rely on them to get the message out. That's why we did so many neighborhood meetings ourselves. And even then, to some degree, we distributed those times and dates, to the HOA presidents as well, correct, Austin? Yes. And we still had the poor attendance, for many of them that we did. There were a couple where there might be hot button issues that were going on right now that kind of drove attendance, but by and large, it was maybe sometimes a handful or 10 people maybe. But other than that, I think Bob did a great job recapping most of the issues and events there.
I think probably to wrap it up, there was the feeling that, here's where my takeaway is. I was happy that everybody showed up. I was ecstatic. And what I told the group was, I said, wow, you should have seen us 6, 7 years ago. Nobody knew what was going on. And now, look what's going on, you know, and whatever it is, whether it's due to social media, whether it's because of all the meetings, the great job that Austin does communicating. A lot of people know a lot of things, and when people know things, whether they agree with it or not, they're going to respond. So certainly the villagers are involved. That's what I got out of it.
Any questions for them? You know, for me, I look at that and it's like, it's great that many people showed up. It's just like, where do we go from here? I mean, because we all have the priorities that we even talked about the day after we learned the bond didn't pass and what's going to be our priorities. But if you were here a little over an hour ago at our budget meeting, things cost money, and anything we're going to do is going to, and I look at things like, okay, do we just want to throw away one project that could be the Part F grant? And that's kind of like free money. If you think about that, what's on the line? 500,000 there?
750.
750. That equates to 8 cents, maybe, somewhere 7, 8 cents of a tax rate. So that's free money, so I'd like to keep that a priority. Certainly, top priority for me is getting everybody under the same umbrella. So if you live in Marvin and you have a road issue, you call one place. You have to determine if you're a state and stuff. So that's going to be priority for me as I look at all the budgets going forward. And the roundabout's going to be important too. And that roundabout alone is how much?
It's currently 840 with a,
840.
it's 590 with a $250,000 overrun budgeted.
Right, which we don't have, and that is 7-8 cent tax just to pay for that in 1 year, to be fair. It's not going to be continuous and stuff. But there's a lot of projects coming down the line, and it's how council prioritizes it, and then realize that, look, it's very likely that there will be, have the adult conversation in the room like you were talking about. There's going to be a tax increase because of just those things that need to be finished and the priorities that we make. So that's good. I love the feedback. Doing the, I have no problem if they're ready to entertain another survey. So be it. The problem is, and what I heard is like people were like, don't think we're not listening. But if you're listening up there in Zoom land or on YouTube and you're not getting back to us, then we don't know. We know, we base it on how many people show up for a town hall meeting, how many people show up for things. Those are the discussions we want to have. And they're just ideas at that point.
Yeah. One of the things that we heard a lot, I think, Bob, is there was this feeling that council's not listening. And, I'm really kind of new to council. Most of the GO bond package was pretty much done and baked, prior to November, really. I think at that point, all the wheels are moving forward. And I had to caution, people to say, is it really that the village council wasn't listening, or was nobody really talking? Because all of those items that you saw in those GO bonds were vetted through different committees, different meetings within the council. All of that information was out there for months, if not years, about the priorities. You see it in our capital improvement plans. If you went to ones 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you'll see many of those projects still in there. So, I did have to caution people, and I would say that is one thing. I think more people are listening now so that they are talking to us, and that's a good thing.
That's always good. I mean, there's no question. I just, and looking at how we looked at bonds before, it's an alternative way to pay for things, and it keeps you within guardrails. It doesn't just give you free spending for whatever, but it was all the things that everybody's been talking about. And the problem lies in, if you did a bond, as I heard rumblings of doing a bond just for the roundabout, that needs to go in there. The problem with that is, on the other side of town, you mentioned, if you're not using that, you're gonna be against that. So that's not the way to go about financing these projects. We've gotta look at the greater good for the community, and then basically, sorry, no. Wait, excuse me, we're not taking comment from right now. It's our policy. No, we do listen, and there's time for that. Okay. Anyway, so that's kind of how I feel on that, so, yeah. Thank you. Anyway, so there's a lot of things to do. How are we going to prioritize what we have? Because we only have so much in the coffers, and we have fund balance we can utilize with. We don't have $4 million or $3 million or $14 million to deal with, like some people have said. So there's a lot of, once you get in and you start digging into the weeds, and I encourage everyone to come to the budget meetings as well, because that's where you can kind of see what we're looking at and what we're doing. And I hate the fact that we've got to talk about cutting things,
Mr. Mayor,
if that's the case.
we do have a separate item in unfinished business for GeoBond project debrief, so if y'all want to spend more time
Okay,
talking about that there.
sorry, thank you for that, sir.
I would want to clarify one thing, which is the gentle lady that just left. There are comments that were made. Bob and I just made a summary of them. If you want to talk about any one particular comment about roads or roundabouts not being wanted to have one place or another, that was a comment that were made. Bob and my is just a summary of it, so we don't pretend to be displaying every single comment we heard in a 2-hour meeting.
Right. Well, I'll be interesting what comes out on Nextdoor after that, I guess, so we'll see. But I don't necessarily even look at Nextdoor. I get reports from other people, so you're not affecting me. WUMA report, next up. We're all done with coffee with council. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for being there. I had notes, and I actually had to send them to, so apologize for this, but I had to send them to a mayor she wanted my notes, and I didn't bring them with me, but I did take a photo of them.
Mr.
And-
Mayor,
yes, sir.
You did recap the previous women meeting at the last council meeting.
Oh, I did, that's right, I did. So that's basically what I was gonna report, basically. But for the audience here, I think the county presenting what their shortfalls are, the budgets with, and I think they need a prison and some beds. They also need areas for judicial. They said there is gonna be a reevaluation, and it's gonna be a significant tax increase at the county level. So just, it was kind of a recap for them, more or less, at WUMA. So, all right, any questions on that? Moving on, I need consent agenda. I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have public hearing for temporary use permit application 24-13180. We're going to open up the public hearing first, right?
Mr. Mayor, you just open it up yourself. You don't need a motion.
Okay, I'm going to open up the public hearing for temporary use permit application number 24-13180. All's in favor? Just so I can get some people behind.
Okay, so this is a public hearing for the temporary use permit application for the village events at Marvin Eford Park. Those events being the Easter egg hunt, Marvin Day, the 5K, and National Night Out. Per our ordinance, basically all temporary use permits of special events, I think it's over 50 or 100 people, basically require temporary use. So we kind of put this in one umbrella because we don't know what those estimate. I mean, we estimate the turnouts, but we never know like truly what the turnouts are going to be. So with that being said, is there any specific questions from council on this?
I didn't see any concerns or questions I had. Anyone else? Hearing none, do we want to close the,
No one has signed up to speak for this one, so you can proceed.
okay. So we can close the public hearing for temporary use permit, application 24-13180.
There should be a motion in your guys' agenda packets.
Yeah, someone want to take that motion?
All right, so I'm going to make a motion to approve the TUP application 24-13180 and finds the following. The proposed temporary use will not materially endanger the public health, welfare, and safety. The proposed temporary use, will not have a substantial negative effect on adjoining properties. The proposed temporary use is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance and preserves its spirit.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next up, public hearing for consideration of the Heritage at Marvin subdivision preliminary plat and construction plans. Hunter, I assume that's you. And I need to open up the hearing for that? I'll open up the hearing. I don't want to, yeah, it's open. The
Okay.
hearing's open. I'm sorry, you was looking at me like I needed to do something.
Sorry.
We're good.
So I'll start with kind of a brief overview and report on the construction documents. This is for the Heritage subdivision. If you recall, this is the Jones Homes development that council approved for rezoning back in August of 2022. Jones Homes has submitted their full-scale construction and engineering documents to the village for review. This is more of a procedural thing with the public hearing and all this. Most of the, obviously, review and comments and everything is being reviewed by myself, the village engineer, any outside agencies, including like DEQ, DOT, as well as Keith O'Haron, the urban forester. They all have reviewed plans. There's certain comments we've already received back, certain approvals we already received back. But they have already addressed the first revision of comments that are in your packets. Our engineer has reviewed the second set of revisions, and those comments I should have this week. Jones has already received approval from NCDEQ on their sedimentation erosion control plans. We are currently working with NCDOT on the road improvement plans that include the left turn lane as you're exiting the roundabout to turn left into the proposed development, as well as a right stacking lane if you're coming from South Carolina towards the new roundabout.
Say that again. What was
So
the left turn? Say that
The
again.
left turn is if you were exiting the roundabout heading towards the South Carolina state line and the development's on your left, you'd have a left turn turning in. All of those improvements, I will say, were not identified as needed in their TIA. That was a recommendation by staff during the rezoning process to look at further improvements, even though the roundabout was being constructed at that time. The intent of that is basically where there are any left turns into the development, it's not going to potentially back up into the roundabout. It's basically, for safer ingress, egress for the potential residents of the development, but as well as just for safety of just through traffic on Newtown Road. DOT would like to see those improvements, and the developer wants to put those improvements in. So we're working towards that. It's just with some right-of-way acquisition for them to do the improvements on like 3 properties.
Is that what all those flags out there are for? Is this right away for them to figure out all that?
To my knowledge, no. I've gotten questions on those stakes. I've asked the engineers for Jones Homes. That has nothing to do with them because it goes all the way down to Woodland Forest. So to my knowledge, no, it's not.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Regarding further about the plans, the current tree mitigation and landscape plans are being reviewed by Keith. Staff has the availability, if council approves these plans, basically to the contingencies already on basically final staff approval and outside agency approvals before they are actually quote-unquote released for construction. Certain aspects of those plans can be released for construction. The tree mitigation and landscape plans, for example, that's going to be something that they wouldn't be doing until probably 9 months from after they break ground. But those currently are being reviewed as well. Is there any questions on the plans or about the development as a whole?
So when you say improvements, you're looking at potentially an extra lane, a left turning designated lane is what basically they...
Yes, and I don't have them in front of me, but I believe it would be stacking for, I think, either 3 or 4 cars to turn left into development.
Left and right, correct?
Correct. It's also, this development will be a ride-out only So there will be no like left turn movements across Newtown to exit the development. Be a right turn out, where if you're going towards South Carolina, you'd basically turn right, go around the roundabout and go back.
So will there be a median there or something to block
There will
that?
be a, what do you call it, the like pork chop island
Yeah,
at their entrance, so you can only turn right out.
okay.
There will not be a median, there will be a painted median in the middle of the road.
Painted, okay.
So like striped there, but there won't actually be like a concrete median in the middle.
So is there two entrances or just one?
There's just one. The second entrance is just identified as an emergency access, so we didn't have two ingress egresses coming off of Newtown Road. So it will be basically paved up to past the last lot in the interior of the development, and then it will basically be like the sub-base and gravel of a formal road. It'd be gated, like a breakaway gate for any type of emergency access, but it will not be like a public access for ingress egress for the development.
That's that one, yeah.
Very good. Any questions? Did we have anyone sign up to speak?
No one has signed up to speak.
Okay. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing for the Heritage at Marvin subdivision plat. And then do you have anything else for us on that?
No, yeah, there is a recommended motion in your guys' packets. Once again, it's just basically to approve them for a procedural thing, but the final set, like I said, still going through some minor review, comment revisions based off of village and outside agencies' comments on those plans.
Okay, somebody want to take that? I know.
All right, I'll do it. I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat and construction documents for the Heritage at Marvin subdivision contingent upon final village engineer review and approvals. And approvals? Two approvals? Approvals and approvals? Yes and no?
Does it really say that?
Yeah. So one approval?
Dang, copy and paste.
Okay. Approvals from all applicable outside agencies.
That's correct.
Okay. Make sure you add all those extra words in there, Austin. Nope, not going to say it again.
Further discussion? All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. I'm going to ask for a quick 5-minute bio break.
Yeah, 5 minutes for a bio break. I don't know that it was a motion.
I got somebody wrote me an email, I lost it. Somebody's complaining about listening to it, and they was asking a question.
Oh, on there?
Yeah. I was saying, I guess they're watching this. Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Jamie, I was looking through my email. I popped up while I go up to the top, my email, and then somebody was asking me some questions, and it was about what was going on here. So I guess it's somebody home watching it, and they sent me an email, and I can't find it there.
Can't find it now?
Well, yeah, because I've got about 50 I haven't looked at. I'll take that back.
Well, that's why I wanted to say something. I mean, that was said, somebody said that, but Bob and I are not regurgitating every statement that was made in a 2-hour meeting. Well, she mischaracterizes anything people say, and warps it into a point of false. Yeah, so that's why I'm really not going to engage with her. I'll engage with pretty much anybody, but not Chase.
And they come
Bob Nunn came and called me because he saw me.
35.
He said, she didn't ask me permission to use my words like that, and that's not what
The only guy that said yes was a guy that lived there less than 6 months.
Understood, yeah. No, but he still felt,
But they all said, and they said,
correct. He's not saying she can't.
basically they told us
but
they
he's
would
just
not
saying
vote for
that
anything.
He doesn't agree with
to
it,
raise
and it's
taxes.
his words.
They got their own trails, they got individual roads.
No, and especially lawyers were all there. So it wasn't, yeah. Correct, correct.
Austin, can you get in here?
Yeah. That's what I said too. That's what I said too. I said that in the coffee with council, and then she accused me that there was something that I did that misrepresented.
He's
I
eating.
said, what was that? And she wouldn't say.
Councilman Lyon, we're going to start.
All right, Jamie. You got 1 minute. All right. Welcome back, everyone. We'll reconvene the meeting, and we're going to move on to unfinished business. First up, Sorry. Going to reconvene the meeting, and first up, we have unfinished business discussion of stream rehabilitation grant, which
which
is
I can't
referred
say.
to as STRAP.
Yeah. So staff put together this grant for stream rehabilitation. Christina, can you just go over it a little bit?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
And then I'll jump back in.
Yeah, so we actually jumped on this as soon as we saw the funding mechanism that was floating out there, and we have heard from the community that there's some stream issues in various parts of communities, mostly what we have attributed to in our novice research as blockages, whether it be log jams, down trees, just debris buildup, artificial structures, they're clogged, beaver dams, remnants of beavers, just various reasons. We have heard from HOAs, we have heard from different property owners, we saw the available funding source, and we wanted to try to do what we could to benefit the community. We know that a lot of remediation efforts would be borne to those respective individual property owners or HOAs that are reflective in their HOA dues, or however they want to fund that. But cleanup has to take place in order for the stream to flow properly, and so we identified this funding source so that we could get some money into the community and help to remediate some of those efforts. We did identify 4 sites, which are primarily some of the tributaries that flow into 6 Mile Creek. So that 6 Mile Creek was included in that submission, as well as the 6 Mile Tributary, Marvin Branch, and McBride Branch. The 6 Mile Tributary and the Marvin Branch were identified as priority sites and affected neighborhoods, and I have very specific information about these if anyone is interested, but as a total in all of that, the affected neighborhoods are Marvin Creek, The Preserve, Firethorn, Canterfield, Wyndham Hall, Bridle Path, Elysian Fields, and Marvin Estates. I don't think that I've missed anyone. Did I miss anyone? The Sage. So there may be a few more. If you're adjacent to a creek, you're probably encompassed into that. We did work with the HOAs to gather information about identified blockages or any photos that they had, so we do appreciate those HOAs that help contribute to that process. It was a very condensed timeline from the time we identified the funding to the time the application was actually due, so we kind of scrambled, doing what we could, had to drop everything and make that happen. There was about $36 million available with the state. We submitted an application for $17 million. We know we're not going to get that. We'll be lucky to get $1 or $2 million. So we know that we're going to have to cut it back a little bit and try to prioritize a little bit more when that funding comes around, if we are awarded. We did submit for vegetation debris removal, artificial debris removal, in-stream sediment removal, and then stream bank stabilization and stream restoration. We did include the necessary engineering administration permitting allowances within those price estimates that we had submitted. If awarded, the work will be conducted with permission and assistance from the affected and abutting property owners through necessary permits with the village and the state. And again, like I said, this grant was written to assist those HOAs experiencing these flooding issues of poor stream flow for various reasons, so that cost remediation is not borne to just individual residents or HOAs. It's something that we wanted to help to contribute as that funding source is available.
So what was the grant consisted of, what, the application? I mean, what hoops do we have to go through out there? I know we submitted some pictures, we were around, driving around. Anything else that, I mean?
You mean as far as the application?
Yeah, I mean, is there like an appeal? Because there may be stuff that we missed. I mean, we only drove around that day we had that really bad rain. We were only able to get to so many places.
Yeah,
but-
so majority, when you guys drove around at that storm event, a lot of what you were seeing is just storm water. This is really just, we're talking about stream flow. Now, obviously, the storm water flows to the stream and it backs up and can cause flooding issues on roads. So that will help address some of it. But in simple terms, the streams just aren't flowing like they should be for various reasons. And so we're trying to do what we can to remediate those issues.
Is this state or federal?
It's state.
Okay.
Yeah. There are federal opportunities out there. There actually was a grant that was just due 2 weeks ago. We didn't have time to put one together. So we have identified other opportunities. If we don't get this funding, we can apply again. We can solidify the application a little bit better. And there's other ones that we could also look for.
So are these grants available only to municipalities, or could HOAs apply for them?
You have to be a local government. HOAs cannot. Not well, the one that we applied for, HOAs cannot. Now, I don't know about other ones.
Okay, the federal one? that
I
we-
would highly doubt an HOA could, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay, so the village staff took their time and energy and effort and put other things aside to try and help out a few neighborhoods that would otherwise be on the hook monetarily, or I guess individual homeowners on the hook to fix this issue.
So, Hunter, you can chime in and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it would be very similar to the Marvin Creek tire cleanup, where they went in and cleaned things up on their own. Now, they used volunteers, and they were able to remediate those tire issues to clean up some of that. So I think it would be very similar to that type of issue.
Okay.
Are these grants street grants, or are they matching grants?
It is not a matching grant, but it is a reimbursable grant.
Okay.
So unassigned fund balance will be utilized for that at some point in order to pay for it and then get reimbursed.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have to front the money, and then we get reimbursed. So we got to make sure we have reserves or build reserves
Yes.
to be
that
able
is
to
correct.
handle that.
And then if we are to receive this grant, who oversees this project and
Facilitates
how does it happen?
Yeah,
Explain.
we would have to facilitate that, and it would have to be a really big collaborative effort with a lot of different parties. But we would oversee that, and we would hire an engineering firm to pretty much administer the whole thing.
So do we have any ordinances that apply to this, anything like that?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it would all be development that happens within the floodplain, so we would have to go through that permitting process, for sure.
Would the money that we would be getting, would that be reimbursable for the purpose of hiring the engineer, or would that have to be separate?
I
village
did
funds?
include that into my cost estimates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and remind me, I feel like you told me this was in the fall?
We will know in May.
May, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I don't know how quick we'll get the okay to proceed, but they will let us know in May.
If we
And then,
get anything.
then they,
And-
once they come, we have to find the group to go do that, or do they?
You mean the contractor?
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have to do an RFQ or RFP, whatever the applicable service would be at the time.
And we don't have anybody that we currently have contracts with that would be able to do any of this work, or do
So
we have some?
I do know, we do have a current contractor that does, our contractor that does the concrete, they actually do some of this level of work, but we would still have to RFP it because it's a
Outside
different
of the
service.
scope of their,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So if it doesn't get awarded, what happens since this work needs to be done?
If it does get
If
awarded,
it does not get awarded?
that's a good question. It's something that Hunter and I are still exploring that currently with Chaplin as well.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? You
Nope,
good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Moving on, GO bond project debrief. I guess this is what we were sort of getting into. So does anybody want to start or open up the thoughts? We talked a little bit about this the day after the bond on we came back into session for a work session, just to kind of sort of get a game plan, talking about what direction we go and where we go. So
Sure.
anyone wants to start?
I'll start. So I think Bob and John heard at Coffee with Council that residents would like to see the Part F grant money go towards the roundabout at Waxaw Marvin, and that we can just kind of divert those funds. Christina, if you want to talk really quickly about kind of how long we've been planning this, what has been in the GO bond, what the Part F grants can be used for, and then I'll pick up again, if you don't mind doing all that.
Okay, I didn't come fully prepared to ask that or answer that, but I can give you kind of some high-level detail. The Village Hall Park in concept, to what degree is I can't answer that question, but it has been in concept from at least the old Village Hall project. And I want to say you guys did that in 2015, 2016, if I remember correctly. I came in 2018. I know that it was part of 2017. It was part of the original plans that were in the civil plans for the Village Hall. It specified a farmer's market, and it had a lot more impervious surface than what we are currently projecting. So I know it started there. The concept for at least planning for the we say amphitheater, but it's really multi-use facility, has been in the CIP since at least 2019. I know it was in the 2021 CIP, so that would have been done in 2019. And then the Phase 1, which is the groundwork foundation, basically what we're doing over here with the Part F application, that was considered to be Phase 1. We did go through the Comprehensive Park and Recreation Master Plan in 2022 from a recommendation that was in the 2020 Master Plan document for Parks and Greenways. From there, we created this master plan to see what kind of opportunities we wanted to have at various parks. They did have a in-depth public input process with that plan creation that involved, and Hunter, you can step to the podium and chime in if you want. That involved attendance at one of the highest attended events that Marvin hosts. We had a public input session there. We also had a questionnaire survey that was sent out by staff at the time. I don't know specifics on it, but all those documents and the questions are in that master plan, the comprehensive master plan. I do know there was support for an amphitheater, multi-use facility, Village Hall Park, whatever we want to call it. There was support for it in there. There was also definitions that were in the master plan, the 2020 master plan, that defines the need for us to increase our park space. They do give very specific examples of various types of parks, mini parks, school parks. Do you remember the other various parks that they are? There's various parks. The Village Hall Park was classified as a mini park, and it pretty much matches the definition verbatim in the master plan document. The goal set forth for that level of park was around 1 acre to 1,000 people, and there's various goals that are set forth in the master planning document, as well as the comprehensive Parks and Recreation Master Plan. I do remember that we, as a village, are very, very, very much below the National Parks and Recreation standards. If I remember correctly, the standards were around 12 acres per 1,000, and we were around 4 acres per 1,000. Can you find that? It should be highlighted in there. It's somewhere in there, but Hunter can find it. It's all listed in there. The Village Hall Park was actually itemized in there as one of the goals. From that plan, again, that was developed in 2022, adopted in 2023, that's where we proceeded to move forward with hiring the consultant to do the Part F application. That was done in 2023, and then we were subsequently awarded in the fall of last year, and so we've been moving forward. We have just recently finished the RFQ for the engineering consultant, which you'll see subsequently in your agenda packet. The grant was awarded as a $1 million grant with a 50% match, which basically equates to $500,000 to be borne by the Village of Marvin. We did also subsequently receive another $250,000 grant from our state legislator through, collaborative efforts. And so that basically brings our net contribution to the Village Hall Park at $250,000. I will remind you that during this time frame, we also had a separate issue that we've been dealing with for several months, if not years, and that's the fact of this drainage pipe causing a lot of water to be dumped onto our property, and luckily it hasn't caused any issues yet. You see sandbags out there that we're constantly having to put out there from a staff to make sure water doesn't penetrate the building. We had done a 30% plan for engineering to figure out what we could do to alleviate that issue. Again, 30%, not 100% construction plans. When we went out to bid on that particular project, I honestly thought it was going to be $20,000 or $30,000, so we didn't do a formal bid. We came back with informal quotes of around $130,000, which is the formal bidding requirements based on our procurement policy. We had to take a step back and say, we have to either rebid this or figure out how we're going to address this. And that was something that we actually put in the Part F application. So I know the community is saying that they want to maybe exchange projects here, but we have to keep in mind that it is a net $250 currently. The money that we got from the legislator is earmarked for parks, so we have to spend that on parks. We can't reallocate that portion to another project. And then we still have to address this issue of water penetration. So if you essentially take that $250 and reappropriate it to another project, we're still going to have to come out of pocket for whatever that cost is to fix this water issue that we've got, which was estimated at $130 maybe a year ago. So I don't know what actual bids will come in at now, but we do have to address that as well. So that's kind of where we're at. I know what the public's saying, and I know what they're wanting to do. I just would be remiss if I didn't give you all of that information. We would have to reallocate that $250 into parks in some way, shape, or form. Did you find it?
So we'd be getting a net benefit that could go to another project of probably only about $120,000 or so if we have to spend that other $130 for the stormwater abatement. And we'd be giving up $750,000.
You could reallocate the $250 from the legislator to Marvin Eford, but we did just put in a $400,000 investment at Marvin Eford, which, you all had kind of decided, since we had put that in, let's focus on here. So that's,
Yeah,
so you could reallocate it, but that's up for you all to decide.
okay.
The, sorry, he just found the,
But it does have to be parks. in
it does
general.
have to be parks. It can't be anything else but park-related items. The Village of Marvin currently sitting at hang on. This is not right. Oh, hang on, includes 20 acres. Okay, so the National Parks and Recreation matrix includes 12.9, yeah, you do it.
The national average is basically for acres of parkland per 1,000 residents is 12.9 acres. We're at 4.54.
That, okay, so, I'm sorry, 4.54.
That's of
By
developed.
1,000, so they're taking Marvin Eford and dividing it.
Yes, because it's
Okay.
20, since 20 acres of that is undeveloped.
Say again?
20 acres of Marvin Eford is undeveloped, like, with,
Okay.
it's just open, like, tree. It's 26, 27.
There's a lot, there's a lot in that comprehensive master plan. Like, it's a lot more than just that highlight, but in short, I mean, if you read it, it tells you in multiple sections, like Marvin's way under budget in terms of the public dollars that they put into their parks and recreation. They're way under various components of parks in general, which is one of the reasons that we had pursued this opportunity, because we thought it was a benefit that the public wanted to see. So that's, you know, we're trying to meet the standards that are set forth in this goal that was adopted 2 years ago, 1 year ago. And this is one of the pushing forces that we use to create that Part F application.
And to add to that, because I know Christina was talking about the community engagement, the village also held, the community engagement, I think, mainly was for the master plan itself. The village then held for 4 days in a row, I think for 2 hours, we basically had an open house for the site-specific park master plan and an open house, I don't remember the dates, but it was back in March or April of last year. And I think we had, I know this when Derek was still here, but him and I would kind of take shifts depending on when people kind of came in. I know that I spoke with about probably 5 to 7 different residents, and all their comments, concerns, and stuff were incorporated into the plan. They did like a dot exercise prioritizing, you know, amenities and so on for the park. All those were incorporated, I think, into the master plan, either with as the results in the narrative, as well as, I think, in the appendix.
Do y'all have any specific questions? I'll try to answer them the best I can, but
I think, I just want to be clear. So the option is to just give all $750,000 of it back
it is an option, yes.
and then get nothing. And another option is to go ahead and utilize those funds, because they're free funds to us, and then allocate the $250,000 to finish it off. So that whole thing would cost us $250 approximately.
If the village funds, it would be $250, but we still have to address the drainage issue. If you're going to talk about keeping the $250, then
But
I need at least $150.
We're going to have to address the drainage issue regardless.
Correct. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to give the money back and take that $250 and reallocate it somewhere else, I still need you guys to give me $150 somewhere so I can pay for the drainage problem.
Right. And as far as reallocating or redirecting funds, that, based on what you're saying, is pretty much out.
We
We
can't
redirect
park funds.
$750,000 for something else.
We
These
cannot-
these dollars
no.
aren't fungible.
Not, $750 of it has to go towards parks, yes. And then $500 of that has to go towards this site-specific park.
I just want to be clear, because, again, those are the issues that every one of us should factor, not just council, but the public, when they make statements, that, you know, certainly, I'm all for transparency, always have been, but let's use transparency all the way around. So those funds cannot be, we can't just say, okay, we're we're going to accept those, the 250 from the state and the 500 from Part F, and we're going to redirect them for another project.
We cannot do that.
Okay.
Well, we,
No, wait a second. I'm getting an answer from you, and I trust you. Chaplain, legally, can we do that?
No, the grants, they all have very specific provisions in them, and they state what the funding will be used for. It has to be consistent with the application, and if you deviate from the application with the parameters it sets forth, you have to get approval from the entity that awarded the grant. But they also have very specific reporting requirements. You have to keep all of your records generally for 3 years, provide access to it so they can come back and confirm that the money was used for the purpose. Because they have different pots that they're going for. You have, for instance, this is more environmental and parks and recreation, so that's going to come from a different agency than transportation. A lot of that's going to come from the FTA through the DOT, through the village, and those are going to have different requirements the same way. And they are very specific on how you use the funding. And you're limited. You have to use it in accordance with the grant.
so I did, on January 4th, I did submit over a scope of work for the use of the 250,000, and I was very specific to include basically the scope of everything that we've just mentioned for Part F for this specific site. So we definitely have to submit the Part F for this specific site, and I've already told the state in that correspondence of the scope of work that's already been approved and accepted as of January 4th that we are spending that 250 of the legislative appropriation on this specific site. So if you wanted to reallocate that to a different project, I would have to go back to them at this point and get further approval as well.
But that would be a different park project.
Correct. That would be a different park project, yes. But none of those funds can be appropriated to anything but parks.
Thank you.
Do you want to add on to that?
No, not yet.
Any other thoughts or comments about bond and how we go forward as a council?
I would add, we went through some of our priorities that we discussed the day after the GO bond, and, even with Coffee with Council that I attended, I think there is significant support, especially from my standpoint, living down, in that end of town, for the roundabout as well. So, that's something that I mentioned initially was a priority, as well as, also making sure that we encumber the funds that would allow us to take full advantage of those grants for the park. So I just wanted to reiterate those couple of items that I said were high on my priority list. I think we do have some time still with the roundabout project because unfortunately it's not going to happen tomorrow regardless. We have already invested some fees with it. As we communicated with the public about the GO bonds, I was very careful to say that some of these items are still going to be necessary for our village. And it may not necessarily mean we may have to raise some taxes to fund those things. So I just wanted to reiterate my support for at least those two particular areas being, because they're big numbers, both of them, that have a profound effect on the finances of this village. And while I supported the GO bonds because I had faith in this council to be as fiscally responsible as we've been in the past, we've managed to do what we've done in Marvin, and not me specifically, I'm new to council, but I think by and large, councils have been very good stewards of the limited monies that we do have in taxes. And I know it's not easy to trust politicians these days. I certainly don't, especially at other levels of government. But I trust that we'll continue to make the right decisions to keep our financial house in good order, but still be able to face some of these, priorities that I think we need to meet.
So I have a couple of things to say about the roundabout, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. So we did get information back from at least the county. Now, again, we're having that meeting on Friday to talk about further questions, that the next phase will not start until at least spring/summer of next year. So to his point, we do still have some time to look at available funding sources and to analyze things a lot more closely in terms of how the levels of fund balance that are needed to fund these various projects that we're mentioning, how that money is going to be replenished because they are reimbursable. So there's going to be periods where it's emptied and then it's refilled and then it's emptied and refilled. So we can definitely look at that at a staff level. It's going to take a lot of time for us to go through and really analyze when those pockets are going to be due and refilled. But secondly, we are still working with Waxhaw to determine, there's a big development project that's taken place down that intersection that they did a TIA about a year or two ago, and there are some potential funding sources that we could tap into from Waxhaw that we're still looking into, waiting on some answers back from that manager to see if we can figure out a solution there. So there may be an opportunity there. So there's two things that I just wanted to mention to you. There also is the opportunity to, we had mentioned if we were going to terminate, kind of when the last due date of that would be before the next pocket of money's due. And again, on Friday, we'll find out more information on that, but there's some benefit to, if that happens, to doing it after the right-of-way acquisition, which would be the next phase, which if you remember earlier this afternoon, I mentioned that next phase would start, and it was around $60,000 or $70,000, our portion. So we potentially could still have the opportunity to slow down the construction or to stop after that right-of-way or before that right-of-way. Either way, we still have time to address the concerns of funding with future funding sources to be identified, or if we can get our hands on that TIA money that was to be allocated for that intersection.
How sure are we that we would get it and DOT or someone else wouldn't step in and say, no, that doesn't affect Marvin at all?
It does, and that TIA was specifically for that intersection, so
Okay.
they were specifically supposed to put in a right turn lane. So we feel like we would have a really good argument to prove that case. And it would obviously be up to Waxhaw to decide if that happens, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there, once we determine that it's money that we're available, that's available, basically.
So
And the Waxhaw development in question, that's not at that intersection per se.
That's
It's on
correct, yeah.
Providence Road, but they have an understanding that a neighborhood of that size on Providence Road will have an effect on that
That's correct.
intersection as
Yes.
well.
So it's my understanding that this TIA was done by the town of Waxhaw. It wasn't done by NCDOT or any other
That's
entity.
correct.
So monies collected from the developer go straight to Waxhaw, which Waxhaw then has the authority to distribute those funds to whomever they deem. So
So-
wouldn't go to the state or the federal funding.
That's correct, and I did have a conversation with their manager on Friday. He's looking into it. I'm not fully prepared to discuss that in depth because he still had to do his research and make sure that, they didn't have the authority or didn't have the desire to appropriate it to another one that would be another level of intersection or road improvements that still that neighborhood would affect. We don't know that to be true, but we don't know it to be not true. So the TIA was actually done with the recommendation at that particular intersection. So I find it highly unlikely that they would be, moving that money to a different location, but it could be, I don't know. So we're waiting to hear back from him and their planning department on very specific detailed questions on that. And then again, on Friday, we'll have more information after the call with the federal highway folks to go over better timelines and when the next pot of money would be due. But again, going back to the other conversation of if we were to terminate, there's still benefits to doing it after right-of-way acquisition, which we need to fully explore before y'all make decisions.
Is there a chance that, two questions. One is, there's a chance between now and next year that there is some type of other grant that could be addressed, that could address that situation? Maybe it's a transportation grant, some kind of critical intersection grant. There's a chance for that, correct?
There's always a chance for additional grants, absolutely. But specifically, I have not identified any, but I have not spent any time looking at them at all.
Okay. Next question is, if we just said, we can't afford it.
If we just said we can't afford it,
We can't afford it. Would the state or the county then look at each other and go, okay, we got to get this done because it is designated?
we can ask that question on Friday.
I would like to know I mean, again, we are caught, we as council are caught in a very precarious predicament here. Because, and it's, and again, this is more than ever when we talk about geo bond and stuff like that, this puts us right kind of in the crosshairs of, you know, when you look at this, because I've got mixed signals from a lot of different people in a lot of different places. The vote no was it for particular projects? Some have said yes, some have said no. The vote no meant we don't want our taxes raised. Is that everyone? Because I've heard people say, you know what, if it's a benefit for the entire community, I don't mind my taxes being raised. So again, we have a predicament. Because as down home, when people tell me, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And so I think it is important to have times like this that again, that's the importance of, and I know I've said it for 4 years, the importance of having the HOA presidents or the board members come to council, come to Coffee with Council, come to our meetings. I don't know how much more transparent we can be. I don't know what else we can do beside offering up town halls and Coffee with Councils and come to the meeting, which I will say for the general purpose of residents out there that want to make decisions or make their input known. I think it's great when they do it here at our work session and they do it here. But it's 3 minutes and there's no communication. That's lack of communication. But that's the process we live with. We live with the process that they can come up there and they can state their name, state their issue, but nothing gets done. Government works like at a snail's pace and slower. So I know I've said, I know that Councilman, I think everybody on this council have all said, if you've got an issue or concern, or you want to voice your opinion, or you want to do something like that, call staff, have them reach out to me, let's schedule a time to sit down and talk. And I think that is far more critical now than ever before. Because honestly, when we did the geo presentations, if I had to look at, I'm just being honest. I mean, somebody can fact check me here. I have to be honest. You have 1,800 people vote, and we had approximately, and Austin, you can help me. Matter of fact, I would request that you do this. I would like to have the number of people that showed up at a GeoBond meeting, and I would like to know of all of them. And I would also like to know the number of people that have shown up for Coffee with Council for the last 4 years.
We don't really keep records on Coffee with Council.
We have recently.
I can go back and look at
You
previous.
can go back, you know what, go back a year. I'm fine. A year's probably more appropriate.
For the past year,
But,
you said?
but again, all my point being is we are in a situation here. And if you disagree with me, if you think we're going through flying colors right now, I'm all for it.
So I wanted to make that point known, because as you're talking about the Part F application and project, if you do want to terminate that, there is a process. We do have to have meetings. We do have to get letters sent to our legislators. It's not just as simple as sending an email and saying, hey, we want to terminate. There's a process that we have to go through, and I want to make sure y'all understand that if you are going to reallocate that 250 match, I will need at least 150 to address this issue. So you're essentially only getting
So
100,
my
150.
initial, and I don't vote, is that's our property, and we can do whatever, whether it takes time to do it. I don't know what the Part F grant allows us, how much time to get to where we're spending those funds. Do you know that?
The timeline for the Part F is very
it's
condensed, and
quick.
I mentioned
It's
that.
very quick.
yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
And we
That's
have
fair.
to understand, the limited amount of money, if we pull out of that, the limited amount of money that we could possibly redirect over here would maybe be $100,000, $150? Okay, so if my simple math, 800 or 850 minus 150 still puts me, there's a big gap there. Now, all right, we've answered that question. That's an easy question to answer. At that point, for those that, and I'm like John, my wish list would be, we had a roundabout there, and we have a roundabout down at Joe Carr and Marvin Road. Is that important? Absolutely, it's important, but it's not free. Something has to give somewhere, and if we think that we can just, again, I wish it were free. I wish we could say, you know what, we can't afford it, and then the state and the county comes in and says, you know what, we'll pick it up. But that's not the case. That's just, all right, then that's my piece on my GeoBond debrief, because this is not a simple conversation, and this is not something, because again, I've had no less than 60 conversations with people, and all of them go against each other. They all go against each other. Taxes, no taxes. Projects, no projects. Roundabout, I mean, this one over here, to me, that's, we've been talking about that for a very, very long time. And I'm for the roundabout. But we gotta have the adult conversation, and somewhere down the road, we're gonna have to make a decision. But I caution people, this is where I do stand up for this council. We're not ones to kick the can down the road. And right now would be the easiest time to kick the can down the road. Everybody votes no. There's nothing for it. We stay at 6 cents. No roundabout, no Part F. We look really bad to the state turning back our Part F money. $750,000. I would love to know if a municipality ever turned back $750,000. However, we could say we could kick the can down the road. And maybe, just maybe, in the next year, we could find funding from another grant, and hopefully someone doesn't like that and just jumps over us and goes to that grant council and says, we don't want it. I don't know. But we're gonna have to, let's either address it or let's not. And that's my take on the GeoBond. That's it. Not fun. It's not fun, it's not easy.
I mean, we do have a subsequent item for engineering for the Part F, but is everyone wanting to move forward on that, or do y'all want to wait until we get to that item?
I think we should move forward with it. With doing the Village Hall Park Phase 1. It was never meant to be out of the bond money, the Phase 1. It was always Phase 2. And I guess I heard, more than just the debrief that Bob and John gave us tonight. I heard significantly more last week after the meeting. And I'm glad people came in. I'm glad people voiced their opinion. I think that's great. That's what Coffee with Council's for. I heard Jamie and I were missed. I heard they were hoping we were going to be there. What I'm surprised about, I guess, is that when we had this conversation last week, after we found out the results of the bond vote, we were asking questions of what our options are, what are our priorities, what are the options. At no point do I think that we said we're not going to do something. We asked what our options are. We asked what does it look like if we have to terminate, if we even can do that. But at no point do I think that we said, no, we're not going to do that. And if I'm wrong, then I may be wrong, but I don't think that was said. So I guess I'm confused on why people are so upset of a decision that hasn't been made yet. And I think Jamie alluded to it, are kind of going to a state agency and speaking on our behalf, which if you want to go and you want to talk to a state agency, go right ahead. I think that's great. I think that being concerned about what's going on in the village of Marvin is very important. But please don't speak for us. And when I say that, I mean, quote, "From our village council's perspective, they have experienced an unforeseen circumstance this week," end quote. I would ask that people do not speak on our behalf. We're quite capable of doing so. And there's more that, the Village of Marvin council members believe their hands are tied and can't seem to find the funds for this traffic roundabout because it would look bad to Part F if the village gave the $500,000 matching funds back. That is disheartening to me. Again, if you want to go and you want to say that and you say, "This is my perspective," then that's fine. Go right ahead. But please, please don't speak for us. And then I have been told that there are now people within the village, and from Bob and John reporting back, that people are so upset and appalled about the fact that I said that people are attacking staff. And that is not true. We always thank staff. We think staff is doing a great job. Well, we have people online who are stating that they think that they should unincorporate so that Christina loses her job. So if that's supporting the staff, we've got some bigger issues. And calling our staff incompetent and having lack of integrity, which is just, not being honest, which to me, that doesn't sound like supporting staff, but maybe I'm wrong. This council hasn't made a decision. You say you guys are listening to us. I think that's great. We're trying to listen to you, but you going on Nextdoor or social media, that's not where we're getting your feedback from. That's not where I'm going to take your feedback from. If you have issues, I had a gentleman who sent an email last week, and I emailed him back, and he wanted to have a meeting, and I said, "We would love to sit down and talk to you. Please let me know when you're available." We've continued to say it. I think all of us are open and willing. You can get 3 of us at a time if you want us. But we haven't made any decisions. So I feel this just wave of just disgust coming from people thinking that we've made some sort of decision. So I implore you to be part of the decision-making process. We've always wanted that. We've never hidden what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish. We have more meetings and more opportunities for people to come in and talk to us than when I certainly started 6+ years ago. And I would like to continue to do that in a civilized manner and in a constructive manner. So I personally want to move forward with the Part F. But we are going to have to figure out how to pay for the roundabout at Waxhaw, Marvin, and Bonds Grove, because not taking that money is not going to make a dent in what has to happen down there. So that's my opinion.
And just to clarify, there's the Part F and the Village Hall Phase 1, that's really on track already. So it's not something that we would vote on that we would need to do. It would only be if we were to make a decision to turn back grants and use what we would have left over, that we would really have to take any action, correct?
We wouldn't need to do anything unless you guys want to terminate. So if you don't want to terminate, then we will proceed as we've been instructed months ago, which is what we have been doing.
Okay. Does anybody want to terminate?
Anybody up for terminating at this point?
I don't I think it would be irresponsible of us to terminate that project. You know, we know that we have a major drainage issue. It's been ongoing since they put that pipe in. And it's got to be addressed, and if we end up net 100,000 that has to go to another park project, what are we gaining if we give this back? So it can't go to the roundabout, so it would be irresponsible to give that grant back. It's just irresponsible finance. I agree that we need the roundabout. We need 2 roundabouts in this village, one on either end. That one, and as we have talked about on many occasions, it's very important that that gets done in a timeline that is consistent with the construction on NC 16, because we know that there's going to be a huge overflow of traffic and diversion for that construction process. This is why we have been working with the county, and we have been working with CRTPO, and we've been working with all these people to get this tracked on a timeline that makes sense.
Moved up. We
Exactly.
had it moved up. So for
Exactly.
someone to say that we don't want it, we, not only do we want it, we actually had it moved
Yes.
up. But again, it's, God, I really want a lot of things, but they cost. And that's where we're at. And I would love for us to be able to come up with another grant that takes care of that, but
One other interesting thing that happened in Coffee with Council is we did discuss the fact that, you know, that people voted no, but for so many different reasons. And we brought up the fact that, you know, there are some people, whether they want the roundabout or not, they don't think we should be paying for it because they don't think we should be in the roads business at all. And a large number of the people that were at Coffee with Council said, that's not true, there's nobody that feels that way. And 2 of the people that were there at the meeting said, well, yeah, I do feel that way. You know, so you can't always know the reasons why other people voted no either. And that's something that, you know, we're right now struggling to have to kind of cipher through. Because there are people, and that's a legitimate point of view. You know, we should be getting our tax monies back from the state DOT. Is there any reason we should be in the roads business? That's a legitimate, you know, question, one way or the other. But I just caution people to think about the reasons why their neighbors voted no, too.
Well, whether or not we're in the road business, the state still requires a match to do any road improvements within a municipality. That's their standard operating procedure at this point. So whether we're in the road business or not, we still have to pay that match. And, you know, and truthfully, we're lucky that the county had that 500,000 to put towards this critical intersections project, and was willing to put it in, or it would be all on the Village of Marvin for the 20% match, which is over $1 million. It's what's the total match? 1.09 million would be all on our plate, because we're the municipality that it sits in. And that's the state's rule. So thank you, Union County, for putting up the $500,000. They can't match our match, but they can at least give us what they have. They're not in the road business at all.
We had a presentation, we did a presentation, and within our presentation, we had someone say, our neighborhood doesn't want this. And then 3 people jumped up against them and said, oh, yes, we do. We had to break that up. So again, just that one example. I told my kids, I would never ask you to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And all I would ask is the people that are out there, put yourself in our shoes for just a minute and go, they have decisions they have to make for the entire village as a whole. And you have differing opinions of a lot of different people, because I've got a lot of different opinions. I'm bombarded right now with a lot of differing opinions. And unfortunately, because like in federal polls, when they do an election, they have exit interviews. And of those exit interviews, it provides a lot of good information. Well, here, I don't remember anyone standing there doing election. And I don't believe that one 5, 10, 15 people, 20 people can come back in and say that they represent all of Marvin. And that's, and I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but that's the challenge that we face. So again, I would make an offer, and I've got my regular job, as everyone else here does as well, but I will open myself up as much as possible to have a discussion around and sharing facts, because again, $1 here impacts 3 over here. And I know a lot of times that when you don't have, I can't make a decision, and I refuse to make a decision until I have 100% of the facts. And I'm fortunate enough to surround my people who do the same thing. They're not going to say yes or no. They're going to say, give me all the information, and then I'll make an informed decision about that time. And I think that's what we've always said. But I do know that there are many people out there, especially the people that go out on social media, and I'm not on social media. I refuse to do it. I just won't do it, because it's such bad information. But that they view that as their information, and they view that as an informed decision. And if you don't think that that's an informed decision, please come see us.
One of the things I wanted to mention too is that Jill's actually been crunching numbers on our handy-dandy PAL bill tracker sheet. So we've got some options for you all to look at your next work session in terms of where we can start curbing some of the deficits and where they start happening in road projects. So,
Which brings a great point. Again, our decisions, please consider that our decisions are not decisions made for today and for tomorrow. We have to look at decisions that are 5 and 10 and 15 years down the road, and how that impacts people that far down the road. And like, Andy brought up a great point. We have 2 roundabouts that are needed in Village of Marvin. And we just do our best to address one at a time. And you got to remember, we're still at 6 cents.
this PAL bill tracker, just to reiterate your point, it goes out to 2930, because like you said, we do have, when you're talking about road projects, they're multiple years out. We entered that contract at Meadowlark in 2017, 2018. It just got done this year, so that's how long it took. We've got some projects that are slated on here for 27, 28 currently that we know about today that we have to start planning for, and we've got that in the tracker. So we've got this prepared, ready for y'all to look at, so you can look at kind of the whole picture and how you're going to address the deficits when they come about if we stick with the original plan, so.
I guess if I looked at it, I'm looking at it a little bit different, but, you know, my wife always said that when we discuss about what we're going to do, and she'll say, what about both and how do you get to doing both, you know, and being able to do it? One of the things may be, and this is because we've already known, we've seen what DOT has on their timeline. What was supposed to be done 8 years ago just got finished this last fall, or the roundabout just got finished. So is that roundabout really, truly on schedule for what they're saying and our funding in place? That being said, does it make sense to take, because it's going to cost something. I mean, I go back to when we got in this, it's not fair for half of our residents. We're all paying the same tax, but we're not all getting the same treatment. But is it fair for that roundabout that we need to put in, obviously, it needs to be funded. How are you going to fund it? Maybe in this year's budget, we take 1 or 2 cents and put that aside, whatever that does, and that generates $250,000 worth of revenue that we put aside, and it's earmarked for that. And then the next year, if it's needed, you put it in and fund it that way if we can't get the grants. And I heard you say this, I was going to save this for comments, but you mentioned you guys were so busy you couldn't do what? Do another grant? What are we busy doing right now? We're busy, I know I'm busy putting together a public records request for our staff and stuff. So it's like, you know, where are we going to spend our time and doing some of this? So I think we can do both.
I think we just have to look at it as, I don't want to throw away money that's almost like, it is free money, let's face it. That 750 equals a tax hike of maybe 5 or 6 cents for 1 year, but that's still an effect on it, so.
I don't even look at it as free money. I look at it as money that I've already paid in taxes to the state, and I think it's an important role for us to get those monies back to our community to be reinvested. So I don't look at it as, and I'm not, I'm just stating that fact.
No,
That is our money that
It
we've
is our
already
money,
been
but
taxed.
someone could say that we shouldn't be in the road business because we're already, like everyone else, paying the state tax to be in the roads and the gas tax, but nothing's getting done. You said it a long time ago. What you see now is what you're going to get if you are not in a municipality that is wanting to get. So my focus, biggest focus, again, because I've been here the longest and seen how, I said, we're going to do this, we should do this all at once and just bite the bullet back then, but they didn't want to do it. They were so proud of never raising a tax. And in the 10 years I've been here, it's 1 cent has gone up. And that was for an officer. And now we're still behind on 15 miles of roads in Marvin. Now we've got other things that we've got to address. I'm very proud of what we did with the bond. I mean, it went down, people spoke, I'm fine, but I'm comfortable knowing that I was trying to give an alternative method of how you can get to the same place. I don't think it would have been anywhere near, but we couldn't, what we had to say, but our hands were tied with, we had to disclose we were going to use all 20 million and we were going to be at 5.5 cents as an interest rate, which we didn't have to approve. So all those numbers were funny numbers as far as I was concerned. But again, I'm happy because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to solve problems. You mentioned a few people in one room. We had a whole neighborhood who is very strong in their voting block, and that's Weddington Chase. Almost all 30 of them said, why do we want to do a bond? We already have our roads. We already have our sidewalks. We're on this side of town. I don't want to do anything. I guarantee you there was one guy, I think, that stepped up, and he was young, just moved to the neighborhood. So, I mean, when you see it that way and you see how different it is for some already have their roads done, why are they going to do it? That is happening in the neighborhood, and that's when you go back to your point, we're no longer a village if it's that way. We as a body have to decide for the greater good and what we're going to focus on. I think we can do both and. The park, because that's ours. We have the drainage issue we have to deal with, but let's take and consider when we do the budgets, because I'm not so sure DOT is going to be on time for all of those funds, but let's have them ready, and let's at least earmark a cent or two aside for that, and then come 2028 or whenever it's needed, hopefully we have it, or we have a little more engaged community that can understand that this is going to cost. This is going to cost the community, regardless of what side of town you live on.
So we can talk about the tax implications at the next budget meeting when we go into that discussion again. But I think I'm hearing a consensus. We are not interested in terminating the Part F. We're going to proceed as we had normally been instructed. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm not for it.
You're not,
Turning them back.
you're not for terminating?
No.
Okay.
Wayne? Okay. Well, I think we'll find the money. It's just that, don't be surprised.
And then in terms of the Bonds Grove Waxaw Marvin project that was itemized on the GEO bond project list, we're not prepared to answer all of those questions or give you adequate information to make a decision today, maybe not even tomorrow. We'll have that conversation with the highway folks on Friday. I will have some more information back from Waxaw in the next few weeks. Hopefully, we'll have some more information at the work session so that we can give you all information at that point in time, but it may not be then. I'm not sure.
And just so there's two bonds. One was the parks, one was the roads and pathways. The one that we had for the parks, just to be clear, that 36 acres that touches both Waxaw and us. I know they've been reaching out saying, hey, where are you guys at with this? Is it safe to say there's no funding to help with that at all?
Or are we gonna,
We have approximately $300,000 or $400,000 sitting in a land acquisition capital project ordinance. That's all that we would have to contribute to
Okay.
any level of land acquisition.
and I don't know if they'd want to partner if we're only coming to the table with $300,000, but that goes again to raising a tax. What do you want? It may benefit some, but not the others. And that's, you know, it's, again, for the greater good. I think there's a benefit to having a park right there that you could access by bike, unlike Eford Park right now. But I guess my instructions would be to go to the mayor of Waxhaw and say, look, right now it's off the table because, am I hearing that, or is it something that, are we going to entertain raising taxes for that?
I don't think so.
Okay. And I'm fine with that. I just need to let them know as far as direction. And
Are there any questions that you all have on the roundabout that you have not asked already, that you want us to prepare before the next meeting? Anything? Okay.
I don't have any. Did everyone get a chance? We're good to move on? All right, new business. Discuss and consider selecting Dewberry as the most qualified, with Dewberry as most qualified, it always goes off on me, most qualified vendor for scope of work at the new Village Hall Park, and allow manager to begin negotiations at a fair and reasonable fee.
So I'll just take this over real quick. This is for, again, the Part F engineering project. If you remember, there's certain pillars in statute that says that you have to award bids based on price or qualifications. This is one of those pillars that says you have to award based on qualifications, so we cannot consider pricing or cost at this core issue here. We have sent out an RFQ. It was out for about a month. Took staff about 3 weeks to prepare that document. It was reviewed by our attorney, so we have already expended some resources in this project. And we prepared a pretty lengthy RFQ that we felt was very good for the project. We submitted it out to 8 vendors. We got 2 back. And we sat down and went over those qualifications based on various criteria, which you'll see in your agenda packets. That matrix is provided, and it mostly boiled down to the level of experience that the respective vendors had, primarily as a overall federally funded grant project and stormwater experience as well. They were tit for tat on pretty much everything else. Staff just felt like they had more experience, Dewberry had more experience in those 2 brackets, and therefore we are recommending Dewberry to begin negotiations for pricing. If Dewberry comes in at a price that we can't afford as a part of the project scope, we will then go to what we ask you to consider the second responsive qualification submittal, which is McAdams.
So there's really no discussion point. It's,
Unless y'all had other, we did provide those RFQs in the submittals in your agenda packets. So unless y'all's opinion differed from ours in terms of your analysis and experience, we would ask to proceed with allowing us to negotiate those pricing with that respective vendor as number 1 and number 2. Do you have anything?
I was just going to say, this is a little bit different because you do it on qualifications, and also usually with your larger contracts, what we call formal bidding. For construction, you have to have a limited number of 3 bidders. Here's for qualifications. There's no requisite. You just look and determine who's the most qualified based upon the response and the information you have, and then you go to work out the contract. And that's in accordance with the engineering and architectural services of the North Carolina General Statutes. They just do it differently for these type of professional services.
so it's a state statute that this is the way we have to do it.
Yes, it's 143-64-31.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Christina about this?
Do not.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to allow the manager to begin negotiations at a fair and reasonable fee with Dewberry as the most qualified vendor for the scope of work at a cost not to exceed, TBD, with an alternate vendor of McAdams if fair and reasonable pricing is not achieved with the primary vendor.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? No one against? Full, Motion passes unanimously. Next up, we have discussion of the process for adding items to meeting agendas.
All right, so this is me. So this is, if we have items of discussion that we just kind of want to talk about, throw around, those need to go on work session meetings, not brought at regular general meetings where we do most of our voting. So I know that we had a situation, and John didn't know about it, and it's okay because he's new, so we're going to forgive him. But we need to just put kind of sausage-making stuff on work session agendas, and if we can't, if whoever wants to talk to us about whatever the issue is can't make it, then we just need to put it on a later work session meeting. So can we
basically, the
all agree upon
process,
there?
it just goes
Yeah,
to
just needs
work
to,
session
needs to go to work
versus-
session, and then if we need to vote on something, then we can vote on it at the subsequent meeting.
Usually you used to have, I think in the past, because we went through this before you, is we went through where you had to get at least 2 council members to put something on the agenda or an agreement to put something, anything on the agenda. And again, a lot of times, that's why we talk about open topics, then it leads to the work session, and work session would go to eventually a vote, so. Any action on this?
No, it's just more directing staff that that's where they need to go and just making council aware. And if the public wants to know, if they want to come in and talk to us about something to put it on our agenda, they can do that at the work session and not a regular meeting.
All right,
Okay.
thank
So,
you.
Thanks.
Next up, we have open topics. Does anyone have anything? I have one. No, I do.
No, I mean,
I was going to say, you have to listen to it. Actually, it's regarding the roundabout, because of the issue with the traffic. I had the principal reach back out to me, and we had a long discussion. He's tied, his hands are tied too, because he is trying to convince the county to allow, because the suggestion was, for those of you who don't know, that a different access for the students, 2 accesses for the student parking lot. There's one just beyond the football field, behind Crane Road, that they could go up and access. All they have to do is drop that bar, and you could have access, and would alleviate a lot of the traffic on Crane, what's happening there. And we had a nice conversation, but it appears that he's been down this road and trying to do it, and I had made that suggestion, hoping for how we can address, and we even, I think at one point, and I've got to follow up with the mayor of Waxhaw about putting officers on there, if that's even allowed. So we're trying to figure out something for that end of town, especially during the school season. So, but that's, right now, it's an issue with the county. And the county won't, the bus drivers won't allow it, because you'd be having kids mixing in with bus drivers, which I don't really think you would, but it's going to be hard convincing
They're all
them.
coming in together. It's
I
like
agree,
they're
and they're not going all the way back up to where the buses are. They would be turning in before. I don't see how it would be an issue. I think it'll leave tons of, I don't know how many cars are in there, 400 every school morning, but
Do they think that the bus traffic is going to get mixed in with the student traffic, maybe?
yes, yeah. And then that there would be accidents and stuff like that.
Can there be a student lane and a bus lane as an option? Because if, in most places, you go to the airport. You go to the airport, and when you pull in, there's a lane for taxis, and nobody gets in that lane. And then there's a lane for personal. I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to come up with ideas.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think, because there's only that other access point that we would utilize from the people coming from Bonds Grove. They could take off there, or the people coming from Newtown all the way down, and instead of making a left on Crane, because that backs up beyond sometimes the elementary school, have them go straight and make a left-hand turn into where the buses make a left-hand turn. And again, they're not going all the way up to the hill where the buses are, they're turning in before. And it would make so much sense. I don't know, there's not that many buses, I mean, that are, but there are 400-plus cars.
All right, but you have someone directing traffic on Crane Road, but you have, could
No,
you
you
not
don't.
have?
Well, on Crane, well, for the kids, yes.
Right,
yes.
so, but could you not
And the
have
Two
some,
people, yeah.
And the
and the
parents.
could you not have someone down there as well?
That would take another
It's another,
individual, yeah.
I'm just,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
Is there anything that you guys want us to do in terms of
No,
that?
I'm just wanted to give an update on that,
Okay.
that we finally had a conversation. So that's sort of going nowhere, but was one of the things we were asked to do as far as trying to figure out a plan for how bad that intersection is and how we can alleviate some of the traffic, so. But that's a good point, I could ask him, but I think he's going to come back to the same thing. But that's all I had for open topics. Anyone else? All right, next up, a review of action items.
Okay, the list is not that long today. You guys are going to have the conference call about Bonds Grove, Waxhaw, Marvin on Friday. We are not moving forward with the plants for the old Meadowlark Lane until we have a better idea of what the Heritage District will look like. I'm going to pull some numbers for you all regarding the number of Coffee with Council attendees from the past year, and as well as the number of attendees from GO bond meetings. Keep in mind that not everybody did sign in, but I do have the sign-in sheet still for those meetings. Other than that, we have our marching. We're going to move forward with Dewberry negotiations, and we are not terminating Part F. We're going to move forward with Phase 1 of Village Hall Park as planned. And I think that's about it.
Okay, any comments from council? We missed anything? That said, all right, review of Mayor Pro Tem, Pro Kim lists.
This is my micromanaging list, sorry. Hunter, what'd you find out about Art Towns at Ardrey? Good thing I micromanage.
Should have been open topics.
Tyler and I met with the property manager and one of the HOA board members last week. We walked the Amber Meadows Trail and kind of showed the vision of kind of connecting to Amber Meadows and Tullamore, as well as kind of explained to them the original kind of plan for that area that I know was discussed, I think, with Rohit and Pulte as Passive Park. In short, they're willing to, look at all options. One of the downsides is that they are a development that's not within the village, so that, funding and certain aspects of the potential amenities of this area, will be up to the discretion of council on how much we want to spend. I did toss the word annexation out to them. They said they would be open to it, so I'm in the process of getting them that information. But overall, good meeting. I think basically we will get that connector easement, but part of it too they will want a connector easement. The issue is that there is the McBride branch there, so then that's going to come in with any type of floodplain stuff. So we would have to get with the county on that because that's their portion, because it's not in the village. So on what their requirements would be, should be still similar to any floodplain requirements. But yeah, overall good, and I'll come back and present all that to you probably at a later date once I know where we stand on getting that easement.
Good, all right, cool, thank you. Andy, are you finished with all your projects?
Yep.
Okay, Austin, check.
Check.
Roundabout landscapes, we should be
doing those now. They've got it planned in the next couple of weeks.
Yep, all right, check that off the list.
Check.
Okay, that's on hold. I think you can go ahead and check off the list of the youth programming.
Where was that?
It's in yellow.
Okay, we're completing
Yep.
that.
Do we have the radar signs installed?
We just had the first encroachment agreement executed Friday, so they're going to do that in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to work on the other one where we have to call in a locate, so it's in progress, but
Or no?
not yet.
Okay. Council members will reach out to the owner Southern Spirits, just check that off the list. I don't think anybody's done that or is planning on it. Andy, you gonna call NCDOT about the school zone signs?
I will do that now because remember I put that on hold because if the bonds passed, we would have control of the road and we would
Yes.
make our own signs.
Correct, okay. Can you do that, please?
I will.
Thank you. Pickleball quotes, just go ahead and put that on hold.
On hold?
Yep. Did you guys execute the Spectrum agreement for internet?
We did. They're actually installing it
Check
now.
that off the list.
Check.
Where are we with ADA parking? We had said we were going to do all of it, and then we were like, oh, that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
so-
we're actually preparing to get a shuttle. We've got some issues that we're trying to work out. Our engineer wants to actually have a stormwater study done before he authorizes anything, so we're not going to have it done before Marvin Day.
We're not going to have the ADA parking done?
We will have ADA. We're not going to have the parking done. We're going to have to do shuttles again for ADA, unfortunately.
Okay, okay. Additional lighting at the park?
Should be done before Marvin Day for those listening, since he doesn't have a microphone.
Thank you. Okay, you can check off the list, the requirements of the off-duty officers. It's the end of that page.
Check.
Have we gotten any of the questions back from the sheriff's office, Christina, when Lieutenant May was here?
You had B&E, did you have B&E data? No, no, I'll check, I'll get that.
Let's follow up with them on that.
Where are we at with that?
Behind the preposition?
Yeah.
We don't have it yet. She's going to follow up with him. He has not gotten back to us yet. It's a good thing I'm micromanaging, because we wouldn't know this. We would have forgot about it.
No, because, again, this is one of those issues where, again, God, don't want to get to the truth, but I do want to get to the truth.
I'll get that, I'll try to have it for the work session.
Thank
Thank
you. You can check off BGWM accidents, because we have those statistics. Have we heard back from the urban forester on the bamboo removal? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So we know what we're doing? Okay.
we're gonna have to get a quote.
Okay, leave that on there, though.
Sorry,
Leaving it on.
Okay.
yeah, hang on, sorry.
Real quickly, we're following the urban forester's recommendations for the bamboo. We've gone from the process we thought would take about a day by using heavy equipment. It's probably going to take more like a few weeks.
Okay.
So we were working on it. We started on it this morning. Removed about 100 stalks or so, but we have several hundred more to go, so.
Okay. You can stay there. Did we find out about the traffic calming policy for the preserve and what we're doing with the stop sign?
Yes, and we're gonna have to come back to you all at a later
Okay.
date.
Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right, just a housekeeping reminder for Austin. Do you have everyone signed up for the ethics training, or what was it?
So yes, for your required ethics training, for those who were recently elected, I've spoken to everyone except Jamie today. For those who are able to do the training, when it's scheduled, it is scheduled for Thursday, May 23rd. We'll do that at Village Hall together as a group. It's at 10 a.m., will last 2 hours. As of now, I know John said he was good for it. Bob will have to do it at a later date. Joe, you were
I
trying
have
to
a
figure that out.
dental appointment that conflicts, but I'll try and move that.
Jamie, are you available for that training?
May 23rd,
10 a.m.?
10 a.m.?
Pencil it in. And it's here, not out of state.
It's here. It's here, it's online. 10 to noon. Lunch will be provided.
Mr. Mayor, our closed session also has to be
Yeah,
in
we'll
there.
move over there. They have a, but we're going to go real quick, council comments. Wayne, you want to start?
Make it very short. I want to thank the staff and the police officers.
I like that.
Again, staff as well. Apparently, we've said they don't work with us.
No, we didn't say that.
Oh, well, they do a heck of a job, and I appreciate sincerely all that you guys do, and really appreciate it. And you got short timer over here. He's counting down the day. You got a day calendar?
I thought it was 46 yesterday. Oh.
Well, thanks for what you do, for you and Ed, and all the law enforcement are out there. Thank you. You do a thankless job, but you keep us safe. Thank you.
Ditto. I'm just jumping in. Ditto.
Oh, good. John? I'm good. Andy?
Well, I know we say this every meeting, but we do really value the staff and our law enforcement. And I want to go one step further. One thing that I really do value about our sheriff's department, I know that there's one resident that puts the news break thing up there on a regular basis about the crimes that happen in Union County every week. And one of the things, 80% of that is arrests. And I want to give a shout out to the Union County Sheriff's Department because that means that they're out there proactively doing their job. Those arrests may not be crimes that happen within the county. They may be just a traffic stop that turns into a narcotic seizure or human trafficking or countless different things that run through the county that don't necessarily happen here. That just, to me, that statistic is positive in my eyes, that our sheriff's department is out there proactively enforcing the law, making sure that our citizens are safe. Our actual crime rates are very low in this county because of their efforts, and I just wanted to point that out, that I feel pretty safe living in this area because I know that somebody's out there watching my back. So I want to say, I just want to give my appreciation to the sheriff's department on that. That's all I have.
Bob?
No comment.
And you're not going to believe this, but
You don't have anything?
I have not, I think everything was said that needed to be said tonight. So I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate staff. Tommy, we'll try to enjoy the last 40-some days with you in our presence, and 46. We'll just try and get an extra day out of you and stuff. But thank you for coming, and thank you, the community, for coming out. That's important. It's good to see more people here. Maybe we have continued more interactions and stuff. So with that, I need a motion to move into.
I would like to table
Close.
closed session. We
You
don't
want-
need it. We're good.
You don't?
Yep, we're good.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry.
So then I will need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you all.
Gave you back a whole hour.
Oh, my goodness.
No, I'm just kidding.
We can go get a beer. It's early enough.